Chapter 1197. Roar, roar, roar. Countless dragon roars sounded out as the 10,000 dragon mark, which had fused with the clear sky Saint Dragon Pearl, seemed to have a life of its own. It turned into silver dragon images that swam out from Zhao Fu's body and swam within the dragon blood pool. At that moment, the golden crystal orb remained within Zhao Fu's body and gave off an intense light as a massive wave of dragon energy flowed out. Arg! This caused Zhao Fu's body to tremble, and he could not help but roar. Boundless golden light flowed out of his body as golden dragon scales floated out of Zhao Fu's body. Boom! The dragon pearl within Zhao Fu's body continuously trembled and exploded out with a ray of golden light that shot into the sky. Clouds swirled as countless rays of golden light dyed the sky gold, and a massive dragon's might descended, causing countless people to collapse to the ground. An incomparably gigantic golden divine dragon appeared in the sky. It had 3 dragon eyes for pairs of dragon horns and golden crystal-like dragon scales. This should be the clear sky holy dragon, one of the noblest dragons out of all of the dragon species. At that moment, the countless dragon images within the dragon blood pool quickly swam around Zhao Fu, and a formless refining power flowed into Zhao Fu's body, covering the golden dragon pearl within Zhao Fu's body. The golden dragon pearl gradually melted and turned into a golden liquid that fused into Zhao Fu's body, causing Zhao Fu's dragonification to become even more intense. It was not just his face, chest, hands, and legs. His body was covered with golden crystal-like dragon scales, and his hands had almost become dragon claws. There were 4 pairs of small dragon horns on his head, and his aura was no longer that of a human's, but that of a dragon's. The golden dragon pearl turned into an orb of liquid and continued to fuse into Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu's body was filled with powerful dragon energy, and it seemed as if it would cause Zhao Fu's body to explode. However, Zhao Fu's body did not continue to dragonify because Zhao Fu's sovereign bloodline was devouring this dragon energy and fusing it into his sovereign bloodline. The clear sky Saint Dragon Pearl's power was continuously absorbed by Zhao Fu's sovereign bloodline, and the orb of liquid continuously decreased before completely disappearing. The clear sky Saint Dragon's power had completely fused into Zhao Fu's bloodline. Roar! The gigantic clear sky Saint Dragon in the sky let out a heaven-shaking roar, and then poured into Zhao Fu's body with countless rays of golden light. Boom! The moment the clear sky Saint Dragon entered Zhao Fu's body suddenly trembled. Countless rays of golden light spread out, and a formless aura exploded out, shaking the surroundings. Within the boundless void, the 3 dim and lifeless emperor stars suddenly lit up. Even though it was still quite weak, the 3 emperor stars seemed to come back to life. The countless gray dragon images around Zhao Fu's body became slightly dimmer, and they no longer devoured life force as unrestrainedly as before. The countless silver dragon images within the blood pool devoured the dragon blood within the blood pool and once again flowed into Zhao Fu's body, forming a 10,000 dragon mark on Zhao Fu's chest. What was different was that there was a golden orb at the center of the 10,000 dragon mark. Zhao Fu opened his eyes and felt that his body had become incredibly powerful. With just the power of his body, he could destroy a small mountain, and his constitution had become many times stronger than before. Moreover, his body's strength could rival high-grade devil beasts, and ordinary sabers and swords were unable to harm Zhao Fu at all. They were unable to break through Zhao Fu's defenses, and this was not only because of the clear sky Saint Dragon, but also because of the sovereign bloodline. Moreover, Zhao Fu's body gave off a faint dragon's might, and his aura contained a trace of dragon chi. If someone said that Zhao Fu was from the dragon race, some people would believe it. Apart from this, a certain part of Zhao Fu's lower body seemed to have become slightly larger, and it seemed that his strength had greatly increased. However, it was a pity that Zhao Fu's bloodline had remained at the mid-stage of a level 18 sovereign bloodline. Zhao Fu was just a bit away from reaching the mid-stage of a level 18 sovereign bloodline, and Zhao Fu's bloodline would surpass a sovereign bloodline and become a heavenly saint bloodline. However, this bit was like an uncrossable chasm. Zhao Fu's bloodline had already reached this level, but even after absorbing the ownerless Bloodstone and Clear Sky Saint Dragon Pearl, he had not been able to break through. However, Zhao Fu could understand this. After all, a heavenly saint bloodline reigned above a sovereign bloodline, and only holy empires had it. How could it be so easily obtained? What delighted Zhao Fu the most was what the Golden Dragon had said. After fusing with the Clear Sky Saint Dragon Pearl, Zhao Fu's Emperor Killer's power had been greatly weakened. Now that the Golden Dragon had said that Zhao Fu could live for another year or so, that would be 2 years in total. This made Zhao Fu feel quite spirited, and he was filled with hope for the future. There was definitely a way to dispel the Emperor Killer curse, and this was the best proof. By now, Zhao Fu had stood up from the blood pool. There was not a single drop of blood left, as it had all been absorbed by the silver dragon image. Zhao Fu found that the 10,000 dragon mark's power had greatly increased, and perhaps bathing in dragon blood in the future would be of great help to the 10,000 dragon mark. After taking another bath and washing off the dragon blood, Zhao Fu gathered his subordinates and started to discuss the final matter, which was the fish scale world. There were still 10 or so days until the contract expired. Zhao Fu started to gather information from the various continents in the fish scale world. After the contract expired, the fish scale world became quite panicked. Even though they knew that Qin's methods were only to prevent them from breathing, as long as they stayed in the water, they would be fine. However, the current Qin was not the same as the past Qin. He had now unified an entire world and could resist the 4 other worlds, as well as the Dark Demon world. They were not a match for Qin at all, so they tried to think of all sorts of methods. Some gathered their forces to defend to the death, some tried to cooperate with other worlds, and some tried to sign a contract with Qin that would be permanent. Qin had fused with the Heaven Awakened world for a year, so they naturally had a way to leave the legacy lands. They knew many things about the outside world, and they had found out about Qin's mysterious and suffocating methods from the outside world. They definitely could not stop Qin, so they could only rely on the 3 other worlds to tie down Qin. Only then would the fish scale world have a trace of hope. Otherwise, the fish scale world would definitely perish at Qin's hands. After hearing about this, the 3 other worlds were incredibly happy. After all, with another world joining them, they would become much more powerful, and the 3 other worlds even gave the fish scale world many good things. This was undoubtedly a big problem for Qin. Qin's forces had already been split between the other worlds, and now that the fish scale world had joined, Qin would have to bear even more pressure. Chapter 1198. Days passed, and in the end, the fish scale world was unified and decided to ally with the outside worlds to resist Qin. In actuality, the fish scale people were only able to survive because of Qin. Without Qin, the fish scale world would have been simultaneously invaded by the 3 worlds. Even though the fish scale world used water as a barrier, it would not have been able to escape its fate of destruction. Now, because of the threat of Qin, the 3 worlds did not have any intentions of invading. They wanted to obtain the power to resist Qin, so they naturally would not do anything to the fish scale world. Since the fish scale world was determined to oppose Qin, Qin decided to attack the fish scale world. The fish scale world thought that with the outside worlds restricting them, Qin would not dare to do anything to them. Now that Qin had caught them off guard, they would be able to achieve good results. Using the remaining time, Qin started to make preparations. 10 or so days later, it was a warm and sunny day, and the deep blue ocean was calm. Today was the day the contract expired, and with the 3 worlds restricting Qin, the fish scale people did not have to worry much. The Darkwater continent was the closest to Qin's Netherwater continent, and it was at the front lines of the resistance against Qin. The system main cities there had the most support for resisting Qin, and the various continents understood that because Qin had attacked first, the Darkwater continent would be the first to suffer. The Darkwater continent now had 5,000 cities and 9 billion people. Compared to the other continents, it was naturally quite weak, and it did not even have a third of the strength of the other continents. As such, the Darkwater continent asked for reinforcements, hoping that the other continents would send reinforcements. However, the other continents were quite indifferent, as the world was dominated by player factions, while the Darkwater continent was a system faction. However, since it was at the front lines of the resistance against Qin, if the Darkwater continent was conquered, it would not benefit them at all. As such, the various continents started to hold a meeting. Do you think we should help the Darkwater continent? I don't want to suffer great losses. We have to. If Qin conquers the Darkwater continent, we'll be the next to suffer. It's hard to say right now. With so many worlds restricting Qin, Qin's forces have long since been wiped out, so he most likely won't dare to do anything to us. If we stab him in the back, it might be very effective. It's hard to say if we attack. Qin has too many tricks up his sleeves. Last time, the four worlds tried to invade us, but they still failed. Our strength is not enough. Yes, I agree with this point of view. Everything should be focused on defense. In that case, I think we should help the Darkwater continent. However, let them be anxious for now. After all, we're also taking a huge risk. If we don't obtain some benefits, we'll be letting ourselves down. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and smiled. They decided to ignore the Darkwater continent's request for help for now and use it as a threat to obtain a large amount of benefits from the Darkwater continent. Qin was also making preparations. Qin was under immense pressure, and had already sent out his forces to defend against the various worlds. Wanting to invade the fish-scale world was quite difficult and would not be an easy matter. However, Qin still decided to continue to attack the fish-scale world, as the fish-scale world was the easiest to conquer. Qin needed a large number of people and land to increase his foundation. Moreover, after conquering the fish-scale world, no one would be able to take it away. After all, with the heavenly domain boundaries protection, as long as they could conquer it, it would belong to them. As for the method of doing this, Zhao Fu and his subordinates had discussed it in detail. By now, the Darkwater continent's army had already made preparations. Most of them thought that they were preparing to defend against Qin's invasion, so they did not mind. They did not understand that the Darkwater continent had long since belonged to Qin. The night gradually darkened, and the cold moonlight shone through the water, illuminating the surrounding water. The Darkwater continent started to attack the nearest continent. Zhao Fu had wanted to use this method to draw the forces of the other continents to the Darkwater continent and then destroy them, weakening the fish-scale continent's strength. However, the other continents did not fall for this, and they could only forcefully attack the other continents. After receiving this order, the Darkwater continent's fish-scale people felt quite surprised. They were not going to defend, but attack the other continents. Even though they could not understand why, they still obeyed the order and attacked the nearest continent, the Blue Water continent. The other continents all knew about the Darkwater continent's movements, and because they were afraid of Qin's attack, it was normal for them to be on guard. As such, the other continents did not pay much attention to this. Under the cover of night, the battle quickly started. This time, the Darkwater continent sent out 300 million or so soldiers, and they quickly attacked the Blue Water continent. The Blue Water continent had never thought that the Darkwater continent would attack them instead of defending, so they were caught off guard. News of this quickly spread, waking up countless people who were sound asleep. They all felt that the Darkwater continent had gone crazy, or else how could it do such a stupid thing? However, the Blue Water continent could deal with 300 million or so soldiers by itself. The Blue Water continent had 6,000 or so regions, 18,000 cities, 9 billion people, and 1 billion soldiers. With this kind of strength, they did not fear the Darkwater continent at all, even though they did not know why the Darkwater continent had suddenly attacked them. Since the Darkwater continent dared to attack, they would not show any mercy. At first, the Blue Water continent was caught off guard, and hundreds of regions were conquered by the Darkwater continent. However, the Blue Water continent's people quickly gathered together and blocked off the Darkwater continent's people and surrounded them. The Blue Water continent's morale was incredibly high, and they were incredibly domineering and arrogant, because they were much stronger than the other side. They had the ability to win, while the Darkwater Continent's morale was much weaker. The Blue Water Continent's people said mockingly, "Are you City Lord stupid? You want to attack us with such a force? What a joke. Now that you can't escape, put down your weapons and surrender, and we'll spare your lives." The countless City Lord's soldiers' expressions were quite unsightly. Now that they were surrounded by many times their number of City Lords, it was indeed impossible for them to escape. It was possible that they would die here, so they felt quite afraid. At the same time, they could not understand why they had suddenly attacked the Blue Water Continent. They simply could not understand this order. The City Lords' expressions were incredibly calm, but they inwardly coldly laughed. They were just bait that Sheen had put out, and their main purpose was to draw these people over. They were not actually going to attack. Roar, 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 roar. Massive roars sounded out as a massive wave of devil chi spread out like a hurricane, causing everyone to feel terror. Everyone could not help but look into the distance and see a massive group of devils flooding towards them. Their evil and savage auras seemed to be able to destroy everything. Chapter 1199. These were all devils, and some could breathe underwater while others could not. However, Zhao Fu had prepared breathing tools for them, which allowed them to move underwater. Looking at the incoming devil army, the Blue Water Continent's people fell into panic. This devil army was simply too big, and there were too many of them. They still did not understand what was going on or why such a large devil army had suddenly appeared. Some people suddenly thought of something and understood why the Darkwater Continent had attacked the Blue Water Continent. If they did not understand anything, they could link it to Qin, and everything would make sense. The Darkwater Continent has long since joined Qin's side, and they're traitors and lackeys. That devil army was released by Qin. Everyone, be careful. These words caused massive waves, and both sides looked incredibly shocked. The Blue Water Continent's people were incredibly furious. The Darkwater Continent's fish scale people had actually betrayed the fish scale world and become Qin's lackeys. The Darkwater Continent's soldiers suddenly realized that they had somehow become Qin's people. Some people were quite happy, while others had grim expressions. Some directly said that they were going to resist. The system's city lords immediately stepped out to calm their soldiers and shouted, "Qin's army is invincible and unstoppable. The fish scale world will belong to Qin sooner or later, and those of us who submit first will enjoy great benefits. Also, look at that monster army. Do you think you have the ability to stop them? This is Qin's power. If you don't submit, you'll die." These words caused the soldiers' morale to calm down. Sensing the devil chi that covered the sky and earth, countless people looked slightly afraid. The devil army was incredibly fast and was about to crash into the Blue Water Continent's army. The Blue Water Continent did not want to just wait for death and started to resist. Swish, 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 arrows flew out with terrifying force, leaving streaks of water in the sky. However, they did not deal much damage to the demon army. Some of the demons spewed out demonic auras to send the arrows flying. Some of the arrows hit the demons, but they only made them cry out a few times in pain. The Blue Water Continent had originally surrounded the Darkwater Continent. Now, they hastily gave the order to form a defensive formation in order to block the Devil Beast army. However, how could the Darkwater Continent allow them to do as they wished? As such, they immediately attacked the Blue Water Continent from within, causing the Blue Water Continent to fall into chaos. They had to defend against the Devil Army while defending against the Darkwater Continent's attacks. In the end, the Blue Water Continent only put up some simple defenses, with a few scattered soldiers forming shield walls. Boom, boom, boom. There were a few kingdoms in the Blue Water Continent that used their army chi formations. 10 or so massive creatures gave off powerful auras as they charged over. However, compared to the demon army, they were like a few pebbles. This was because there were just too many demons. Zhao Fu had mobilized all his forces, a total of 650,000 demons. Bang, 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 muffled sounds rang out as countless large devils slammed into the shield wall. Even though countless soldiers desperately tried to resist, they were still sent flying by the massive force. The defensive line instantly collapsed, and they were unable to resist at all. When the 10 or so core chief formations clashed with the Devil Army, they were instantly shattered. Countless fish-scale people brandished their weapons and roared as they charged at the Devil Army, desperately resisting. However, they were completely powerless. In front of the massive devils, countless people were sent flying like pebbles. They were unable to attack the devil beasts at all, and even if they did, they would only be able to deal a small amount of damage. In order to deal with these large creatures, they had to have things that could deal with them. If they did not, they could only rely on high-grade soldiers. For example, they only needed a few million Stage 8 soldiers to forcefully stop the Devil Army. However, the fish-scale world was still a new world, so how could they have so many high-grade soldiers? The powerful devils at the front broke through the Blue Water Continent's defenses, and the devils at the back started to rampantly slaughter. A massive python covered with fangs opened its mouth and devoured hundreds of people. It had powerful digestive abilities, and it digested hundreds of people in an instant. The python then opened its mouth and attacked other soldiers. A 30-meter-tall, ugly rhinoceros with a twisted head gave a massive roar and vigorously charged out, crushing people into meat paste. It also opened its mouth and madly devoured fish-scale people. A savage black crocodile's blood-red eyes viciously looked at the fish-scale people. It was much more powerful in the water, and it quickly swam over and bit down with its massive mouth, easily biting 100 or so people in half. Following this, it swallowed the corpses in its mouth before continuing to bite at other soldiers. Because there was so much food, it did not finish eating all of them, leaving behind countless severed limbs and mangled corpses. Blood dyed the surrounding water red, creating a terrifying scene. The countless devils madly enjoyed their food. To them, the fish-scale people were food, and they relied on eating flesh and blood to grow. The 1 billion or so fish-scale people were unable to stop the Devil Army at all. The soldiers at the front continuously died, and the soldiers at the back continuously retreated in terror. It was as if there was a massive wave being pushed away. Looking at the countless devils' ferocious and savage expressions, the Darkwater Continent's soldiers looked quite afraid. They rejoiced that they were Qin's people and did not have to fight against these monsters, or else they would have ended up like the fish-scale people. Qin's methods were simply too terrifying and cruel, and they did not dare to even think about rebelling. This allowed them to stabilize their morale. They also did their best to attack their own people, continuously shooting arrows. Some rode flying fish and rushed out, doing their best to kill the Blue Water Continent's fish-scale people. As the Devil Army charged over, the Blue Water Continent's soldiers started to show signs of defeat. As the Devil Army and the Darkwater Continent madly fought, the Blue Water Continent soldiers started to flee, while the Devil Army and the Darkwater Continent soldiers chased after them. News of the Blue Water Continent's defeat quickly spread, and countless people ran in terror, while the Darkwater Continent's soldiers easily conquered region after region. In the end, the Darkwater Continent completely conquered the Blue Water Continent, obtaining countless cities and people, and many people escaped to other continents. This news instantly exploded in the fish-scale world. No one had thought that Qin would dare to act against them in the face of so many enemies, and he had even attacked an entire continent. At the same time, they also heard that the Darkwater Continent had become traitors. Chapter 1200. This caused the expressions of the other worlds to fall, and they all felt furious. Qin did not place them in his eyes at all. Facing so many of them, he still dared to attack others, so they all decided to attack Qin. By now, they had found something to resist Qin's illusion flower devils and teleportation spears, so they were not afraid of Qin. The grassy, half-beast, elf, and dark demon worlds all attacked Qin, while the Devil Horn Empire did not move. They were waiting for an opportunity to defeat Qin in one fell swoop and would not easily act. After receiving this news, Zhao Fu also sent soldiers to defend the borders. Right now, Zhao Fu wasn't afraid of them attacking. This was because Qin's main forces had not moved, and the ones attacking the fish-scale world were the Devil Army and the Darkwater Continent. The other worlds wanted to send soldiers to the Blue Water Continent to stop Qin, so the 400 million Qin soldiers defending the Netherwater Continent started to attack the nearest Ruoshui continent. Of these 400 million Qin soldiers, 300 million or so were fish-scale people, while the rest were Qin soldiers. They were the soldiers that Qin had sent to defend the Netherwater Continent, and after living underwater for a long time, they had some experience in fighting underwater. Of course, with just 400 million Qin soldiers, they would not be able to take down the Ruoshui continent. The Ruoshui continent had 5,000 or so regions and 15,000 cities. It had 7 billion or so people and nearly 1 billion soldiers. If Qin's 400 million soldiers did not have any other methods, they naturally would not be able to take down the Ruoshui continent. However, Qin had other methods, which was what the fish-scale world had done to the human world in the past, which was an aquatic beast tide. After a few years, the 8 aquatic beast kings returned to the fish-scale world, and they could not help but sigh in amazement and excitement. This was their true home. Now that they had returned, the other aquatic beasts were doomed. Before, the other aquatic beasts had lived in fear of the 8 aquatic beast kings, and after they had been sealed by Qin, their good days had come. However, now, the 8 aquatic beast kings had returned. Roar! 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 8 massive roars sounded out throughout the fish-scale world, and countless creatures felt a wave of fear. Even the small fish and prawns started to panic. These roars announced their arrival. The 8 aquatic beast kings herded countless aquatic beasts towards the Ruoshui continent. There were roughly 1 million aquatic beasts, and because it had only been a short time, they had not been able to herd all of them. These sea beasts were about the same size as demon beasts, but their strength was much weaker than demon beasts. Most of them relied on their huge size to give them an advantage. Their physical strength was not that strong. In actuality, if the fish-scale world controlled the 8 aquatic beast nets and had the aquatic beast kings control aquatic beasts, they would be able to defend against Qin's beast army and devil army. This would have been their advantage, but it was a pity that it was Qin who controlled the 8 aquatic beast kings. The Ruoshui continent had just mobilized a lot of troops to the Blue Water continent and joined forces with other continents to resist Qin. They didn't expect that Qin still had such a powerful force. By now, the army that they had sent out quickly retreated. However, the aquatic beast tide gave off terrifying auras as it broke through the Ruoshui continent's defenses and started to invade the inner regions of the Ruoshui continent. Facing Qin's 2 armies, everyone's expressions became quite unsightly. They felt quite troubled. Which side should they go to support? The Blue Water continent's situation was the most dire. That place had already been swept through, and Qin was about to take complete control of that place. Once Qin took control of that place, he would attack the other continents, and the Devil Army was the greatest threat. In the end, they decided to send 30% of their forces to the Ruoshui continent and 70% to the Blue Water continent. The Blue Water continent's 2 sides quickly met. The fish-scale army had many people, around 3 billion or so, and they had prepared some items to deal with large creatures. This forced Qin's devils to stop attacking, and the Darkwater continent's army also moved out. There were 500 million soldiers in total. Yu Xian's expression was cold as he exploded out with a powerful aura and charged at Qin. The person blocking him was a peerlessly beautiful woman with golden hair and golden eyes. She wore a silver knight's dress and held a golden sword. She was Tina Pendragon, and she was someone that Qin had focused on nurturing. Not only did he find ways to increase her various powers, but he also raised her royal bloodline. Adding on her outstanding talent, she had the strength to fight with Yu Xian. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the 2 of them started to fight. The terrifying shockwaves shook the surrounding water, and a terrifying aura spread out. As the 2 of them fought, the 2 armies ferociously charged. The Devil Army roared as they charged at the Fish-scale army, while the Fish-scale army roared as they charged at the Devil Army. The battle between the 2 sides was incredibly intense. countless devil beasts tore apart or devoured the fish-scale people's bodies, causing blood to quickly dye the water red. There were severed limbs everywhere, creating a ferocious scene. The fish-scale world also used all sorts of items. Some summoned monsters, while others combined their powers to attack devils. There was also a type of spear that could be shot out. The spear would create a gigantic whirlpool that would pull in the monsters. The gigantic whirlpool would bring with it immense power that could tear apart the monsters' bodies and cause many casualties. The Darkwater Continent's soldiers were currently fighting with the other fish-scale soldiers. The battle at the Ruashue battlefield was also incredibly intense. Even though there were more aquatic beasts than devil beasts, they were not as effective. Moreover, the fish-scale people were quite familiar with these aquatic beasts and knew their weaknesses. They took measures to suppress them, making it quite difficult for Qin to attack. Battles also started on the other battlefields. Zhao Fu led countless experts to defend the eastern continent, blocking the three world attacks and defending against the Devil Horn Empire, which could attack at any moment. The southern continent of the Dark Demon World was defended by Bai Qi and others, defending against the Dark Demon World attacks. The Dark Demon World attacks were incredibly ferocious, and Qin's side mainly focused on defending. This battle lasted for 6 days, and both sides suffered many casualties. The fish-scale world Zhao Fu took down the Blue Water Continent and Ruashue Continent with great difficulty. The Blue Water Continent had already been taken down, and it was mainly defending against the fish-scale people's attacks. The Ruashue Continent relied on the 8 aquatic beast kings to drive countless aquatic beasts over, allowing them to achieve victory. Zhao Fu had wanted to resist the pressure from the other sides and destroy the fish-scale world in one fell swoop. However, the Devil Horn Empire had suddenly acted. After hearing that Qin had turned countless devil beasts into devils, it had become incredibly furious and ferociously attacked Qin. The 1.5 million devil beasts and devil blood soldiers also started to attack Great Qin. This forced Zhao Fu to give up on attacking the fish-scale world and focus on defending. Chapter 1201. Even though they had suffered great losses this time, whether it was soldiers, beasts, or devil beasts, their gains were also massive. They had conquered 2 continents, obtained 11 billion people, and 20,000 or so cities. This caused Qin Kingdom's population to reach 115 billion people, 190,000 cities, and 2 more continents. Their fate had also greatly increased, making up for the fate they had lost from the 3 continents that had fallen. Of the fish-scale world's 7 continents, only 3 remained, and the other 4 had fallen into Qin Kingdom's hands. After this battle, the fish-scale world's strength had greatly fallen. Now, they only had 3 billion soldiers, which was nothing to fear. Qin Kingdom only needed to gather a bit of their forces to completely conquer the fish-scale world. Because the battle outside was quite intense, Zhao Fu brought back many soldiers and continued to restrict each other. Zhao Fu also sent out ambassadors, wanting to ally with the surrounding worlds to suppress the Devil Horn Empire. If they had allies to help, Qin Kingdom's situation would become much better. Even if they had a world to restrict the Devil Horn Empire, Qin Kingdom would be able to take out a portion of its forces to deal with one world, increasing Qin Kingdom's strength as quickly as possible. However, not a single person wanted to work with Qin Kingdom. This was because with Qin Kingdom's threat, they wanted to see Qin Kingdom being suppressed. They also wanted to see Qin Kingdom's strength weaken, so they naturally did not want to participate. Zhao Fu could only think of other ways to increase Qin Kingdom's strength. Now that the method of turning devil beasts into devils had been exposed, Qin Kingdom needed new methods. This time, Great Qin had also used the illusion flower devils and teleportation spears, but the other side had already thought of countermeasures. They had used a powerful barrier to block the illusion flower devil's pollen, and they had used spatial restrictions to nullify the teleportation abilities of the teleportation spears. Zhao Fu suddenly thought that since devil beasts could easily turn into devils, what about aquatic beasts? Those aquatic beasts were quite big and weak, but if they could be turned into devil beasts, they would be able to increase Qin Kingdom's battle power. In particular, Qin had 8 sea beast kings, who could directly order them to drive the sea beasts into the monster world. Qin soldiers didn't need to capture and drive them away, so it wouldn't cause any losses to Qin. However, the number of aquatic beasts in the fish-scale world had greatly decreased. Before, when the fish-scale people had invaded the human world, they had lured over countless aquatic beasts. Now that they were attacking the fish-scale world, the 8 aquatic beasts had lured over countless aquatic beasts to attack the Midland continent, causing many aquatic beasts to die. Zhao Fu wasn't sure how many sea beasts he could drive over, so he ordered the 8 sea beasts to try and see how many they could drive. Of course, Zhao Fu had brought over 100 demons to see if the sea beasts could quickly transform into demons. They were demons to begin with, so they knew this very well. By now, more than half of the fish-scale world belonged to Qin, and the remaining 3 continents were forced to defend. Zhao Fu could do as he pleased in the fish-scale world, and he caught a 6-meter-long crab to see if it could be turned into a devil. Mama Jiggery walked up and stretched out a hand. Countless traces of devil chi gathered in her hand and formed devil orbs, which she sent into the massive crab's body. The crab's eyes became blood red, and its aura became chaotic. It continuously struggled, trying to break free from Zhao Fu's restraints. Apart from this, there were no changes. Mama Jiggery frowned and turned to look at Zhao Fu as she said, "Your Majesty, these aquatic beasts' intelligence is too low, and it's quite difficult for them to develop. Even though their bodies are quite big, their aptitudes are quite low, so they can be turned into devils. However, it will take quite some time. Also, these sea beasts can at most become low-grade devils. It's very difficult for them to become high-grade devils, and there are even fewer that can take human form." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite disappointed. However, if they could turn into devils and increase Qin's strength, that would be a good thing. As such, Zhao Fu immediately had the 8 sea beast kings herd the sea beasts, and in the end, roughly 400,000 sea beasts were herded into the 4-souled devil world. After taking care of these matters, the Emperor Killing Sword within the sword mark started to tremble and give off waves of sword light. This caused Zhao Fu to feel quite startled, and he sensed that the Emperor Killing Sword world had gone through massive changes. Following this, Zhao Fu entered the Emperor Killing Sword world. The Emperor Killing Sword world was one of Zhao Fu's most powerful methods, but it had not been developed yet. If it had been developed, he would not have to fear the 3 factions at all. It was worth Zhao Fu greatly developing, and in the future, its power would be of great help to Zhao Fu. After all, this was a killing sword intent that could kill celestials, and it would be incredibly powerful against higher beings in the future. After entering the Emperor Killing Sword world, a massive blood-red vortex appeared in the sky, giving off a heaven-toppling killing sword intent. The air was incredibly cold, making it difficult for people to breathe, and it was incredibly painful and uncomfortable. The 100 people in Sword Obsession who had been fighting outside had been recalled by the Emperor Killing Sword world and were now sitting cross-legged under the blood-red vortex. Traces of blood-red chi continuously floated out of their bodies and flew into the massive blood-red vortex. The vortex's power covered the entire Emperor Killing Sword world, and the Emperor Killing Sword world continuously trembled as the weather changed and everything became chaotic. Zhao Fu could not help but feel delighted because he understood that the Emperor Killing Sword world was going to level up. It would become much more powerful and would be able to turn even more people into Sword Obsession. Boom! The blood-red vortex suddenly exploded, resulting in a massive explosion. Countless traces of blood-red chi quickly spread out, and the sky and ground of the Emperor Killing Sword world continuously expanded, forming a world that was 100 regions wide. An even greater wave of power entered the Emperor Killing Sword, causing it to give off a blood-red light and give off a joyful sword hum. Zhao Fu looked at the Emperor Killing Sword. Not only had it become much more powerful, but its grade had also become much higher. It would most likely be able to grow alongside the emperor-killing sword world. In response, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted. When the time came, Zhao Fu would definitely have a supreme killing weapon that could cause the heavens and earth to dim and gods and demons to retreat. The heavens and earth once again calmed down, and the killing sword pool at the center became 10 times larger. Now, they needed even more experts in the way of the sword to enter sword obsession and continue to provide the emperor-killing sword world with killing chi. The number of people who could enter sword obsession had increased from 100 to 1,000, which meant that they needed 1,000 geniuses in the way of the sword. Chapter 1202. Zhao Fu immediately thought of the ancient sword sect. That was the most powerful sect in the ancient STEM domain for the way of the sword, and it was a holy land for countless people who cultivated the way of the sword. There were naturally countless geniuses in the way of the sword gathered there, and the ancient sword sect greatly nurtured them, causing them to have decent strength. They were naturally the most suitable materials for sword obsession, so Zhao Fu would not have to look for them and could directly capture them. Thinking about what had happened before, Zhao Fu felt quite furious. Now, they were using all sorts of methods to kill him, so Zhao Fu felt that he should collect some interest. After making some preparations, Zhao Fu headed to the ancient STEM domain. At the same time, Zhao Fu gathered all of the information he could about the ancient sword sect, as well as a list of names. This list contained the names of the ancient sword sect's geniuses in the way of the sword. All of them had immense talent in the way of the sword and were incredibly powerful. Even though they could not defeat their sect master, they were in the open while Zhao Fu was in the dark. It would be quite easy for them to bully the ancient sword sect's countless disciples. Of course, it would not be possible to capture 1,000 people one by one, as that would make everyone feel that something was off. If Zhao Fu did not capture 1,000 people, he would definitely be discovered, and things would become dangerous. Zhao Fu looked through the information on the list and thought about how to gather them together and capture them all at once. They all had something in common, which was what all geniuses in the way of the sword had in common, which was that they were extremely interested in everything related to the way of the sword. Perhaps Zhao Fu could prepare some things to draw them out. Ordinary things would not be able to attract these geniuses in the way of the sword, so Zhao Fu thought about it and decided to use the killing sword intent. Of course, Zhao Fu had to deal with this, or else his identity would be exposed. After all, Zhao Fu had used the killing sword intent at the ancient STEM banquet. He first had people write 1,500 letters. Zhao Fu would not stupidly write 1,500 letters. After writing the letters, Zhao Fu extracted the killing intent from the killing sword intent and sent it into the letters. There were only 2 simple sentences in the letter. If you want to comprehend the supreme sword Tao, come to a certain place quickly. Just the sword intent infused into the letter would definitely attract countless people. As a sword cultivator, the profoundness of the sword intent was irresistible, and any sword cultivator would want to obtain it. However, just in case, some people might not come. In order to maintain the number of 1,000 people, Zhao Fu prepared an extra 500 letters. These letters were quickly delivered to the disciples of the ancient sword sect. A white-clothed youth stood on top of a mountain peak, sensing the boundless power of heaven and earth. A servant interrupted him, making him unhappy. However, after the servant handed him a letter, a look of shock appeared on the young man's face. In the next second, he turned into a ray of sword light that shot into the horizon and disappeared. A woman in green robes gave off powerful sword chi and held a white handkerchief as she lightly wiped a sword. After receiving this letter, her expression became serious as she turned into a ray of sword light and disappeared. A burly young man was brandishing a large sword, bringing about waves of ferocious sword winds. After receiving the letter, he laughed heartily and left with the letter. At first, most people did not pay much attention to this letter, but after opening it, their expressions greatly fell. They felt an ocean-like sword intent inundating them, causing their bodies to freeze. They felt as if they had fallen into icy water. and their bodies could not help but tremble. They had never seen such a terrifying sword intent before, and even though they felt afraid, they could not help but feel excited. The higher the grade of a sword intent, the more precious it was to them. Zhao Fu's sword intent had been split off from the killing sword intent, and it was one of the most powerful sword intents in the world. As such, they hurriedly headed to a certain place. Zhao Fu had been waiting there the entire time, and he had hidden himself. Seeing the sword geniuses arrive, Zhao Fu understood that his plan had succeeded. Seeing so many people arrive, these people felt that something was off. However, they wanted to see that sword intent, and adding on the fact that there were many of them, they decided to stay. Zhao Fu saw that more and more people had arrived, and there were now more than 1,000 of them. Zhao Fu was about to act when he instantly sensed danger. This was because a few extremely powerful experts of the way of the sword had stealthily arrived. These people's strength far surpassed the Harmony Realm, and they were most likely some of the ancient sword sect's elders. Zhao Fu's expression was quite serious, and he immediately chose to retreat. His plan had failed. Zhao Fu had expected that because he had sent out so many letters, the disciples who had received the letters would most likely report the contents to the higher-ups. With how terrifying that sword intent was, the higher-ups of the ancient sword sect would pay attention to it. As such, Zhao Fu could only give up. With his strength, he would not be able to defeat the ancient sword sect. It was a pity that Zhao Fu's teleportation spear could only teleport across a few worlds and could not teleport across 100 worlds. Otherwise, once they arrived, Zhao Fu would be able to activate the magic formation and instantly teleport them back to Qin City, completing the quest. Just as Zhao Fu was about to leave, a cold-looking middle-aged woman with a sword arrived. Looking at this cold-looking woman, everyone called out respectfully, "Madam." Zhao Fu thought about the ancient sword sect's information and understood that this was the ancient sword sect's sect master's wife. Zhao Fu immediately felt a wave of fury as he thought about how the ancient sword sect's sect master had insulted him. The cold-looking woman was also an expert of the way of the sword, and she gave off a powerful sword chi that made it so that no one dared to get close. She was quite beautiful, and she was tall and slim with white skin. It was said that she had been the ancient sword sect's #1 beauty back then. She was even younger than the ancient sword sect's sect master, only 30 years old. Moreover, she was not of the same generation as the ancient sword sect's sect master. Back then, the ancient sword sect's sect master had shamelessly disregarded his status as someone from the older generation to obtain the ancient sword sect's #1 beauty. She was a generation younger than the ancient sword sect's sect master, so her cultivation was naturally not as high. She only had Heaven Realm cultivation, but she was about to break through to the Harmony Realm. Zhao Fu had never thought that she would be drawn over as well. However, with that sovereign sword intent, no sword cultivator would reject it. As a sword cultivator, she had also come to see this sovereign sword intent. Seeing her, Zhao Fu thought of an idea and took out a few things. These things were small people made of mud, and they were called clone clay figurines. They could change into the user's appearance and had the same aura as the user. They did not have much power, but they were incredibly fast at escaping. They were proficient in escaping through the earth and could escape underground. They were quite suited for escaping. Zhao Fu had made many preparations for this trip to the inner regions of the ancient stem domain, and he had many ways to escape. It would not be like the ancient stem banquet where he could not escape. Chapter 1203. Swish, swish, swish. A few clay golems suddenly appeared, giving off powerful sword auras and killing intent as they looked at the ancient sword sect's people. This caused a few of the ancient sword sect's hidden elders to appear. Just as the elders were about to capture the few people who had appeared and interrogate them about what they were plotting, the few of them instantly turned into streaks of light and disappeared into the ground. The elders immediately chased after them. This sudden change caused the ancient sword sect's disciples' expressions to become incredibly serious. It seemed that this had been a trap to lure them here. Luckily, they had reported this matter to the higher-ups, and with the sex experts protecting them, they did not have to worry. After the elders left, Zhao Fu gave off a deep sense of malice as he slowly appeared like a demon in the darkness, causing the air to instantly become cold. Sensing the malice from Zhao Fu, countless people looked slightly afraid, and their hair stood on end. Hurry and leave. The cold-looking woman drew the sword at her waist as she looked at Zhao Fu seriously. Sensing Zhao Fu's aura, the people in the surroundings understood that staying here would only make things worse, so they all turned into rays of light and left. However, there were a few people who stayed, 4 men and 1 woman. They all had Saint Realm cultivations and were confident that they could help. "Who are you?" the cold-looking woman asked as she pointed at Zhao Fu with her sword. Zhao Fu did not reply and revealed his hidden eyes, causing the expressions of the people who had stayed behind to fall. At that moment, the cold-looking woman and the others all turned into rays of light and shot out. They now knew who Zhao Fu was. He was that terrifying person from the ancient STEM banquet, and he had confined them. With Zhao Fu's cultivation, the cold-looking woman, who was at the peak of the heaven realm, might not be able to defeat Zhao Fu, but stopping Zhao Fu would not be a problem. However, the key thing was that Zhao Fu had a nation armament, and when that nation armament exploded out with its full power, he could just barely fight against a world realm expert. Seeing them fly away, Zhao Fu did not hesitate and exploded out with his nation armament's power. Otherwise, he would not be able to keep them here, and he wanted to quickly end this battle. Now that news had spread, the ancient sword sex experts would soon arrive. Boom! A terrifying power spread out, shaking the surroundings. The golden pupil in Zhao Fu's left eye quickly spun as chains containing immense power shot out, shooting towards the escaping people from all directions. The cold-looking woman raised her hand, and a massive amount of heaven and earth power entered her body. Her sword gave off a sharp sword light that flashed out, destroying the countless chains attacking her. As for the others, they did not have this kind of strength. After cutting a few iron chains, they were bound by countless iron chains and hung in midair. The cold-looking woman was startled, and just as she was about to break the chains binding her disciples, a figure suddenly appeared beside her, causing her to shiver. Bang! Zhao Fu slashed towards the cold-looking woman, and the cold-looking woman hurriedly used her sword to block. However, the massive power still sent her flying. Seeing that he had not been able to injure her, Zhao Fu exploded out with his nation armament's power. A black flame erupted around his body, and a terrifying power exploded out. The space around him could not withstand this power and started to twist. Boom! Zhao Fu once again slashed towards the cold-looking woman, knocking her to the ground and opening up a large crater. Within the crater, the cold-looking woman coughed up a mouthful of blood, and her aura became incredibly weak. Her injuries were evidently quite severe. A trace of a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face as he looked at the 4 men and 1 woman bound in chains. He waved his hand, and a blood-red crack appeared, sucking them in. The chains binding them did not disappear, and they were instead thrown into the killing sword lake. The cold-looking woman climbed up with great difficulty. Seeing that she could not save her disciples, she ran to the side. Shing! A massive sword light descended, once again sending her flying. She crashed to the ground and did not have any strength to get up. Zhao Fu came before her and coldly smiled as he squatted down and tore off her clothes, revealing her pure white body and her ample breasts. The cold-looking woman covered her breasts with her hands and cursed angrily. "Perverted bastard! What do you want to do to me?" Zhao Fu did not reply to her. Instead, he grabbed her hands that were in front of her chest and pressed them on the ground above her head. The cold-looking woman struggled and glared at Zhao Fu as she said coldly, "If you dare to do anything to me, I'll definitely kill you." Zhao Fu was expressionless as 6 black motes floated out of the 6 desires demonic crystals within his body. Zhao Fu waved his hand, and the 6 black motes floated out of his palm. Countless traces of 6 desires demonic chi flowed out, covering the 6 black motes and forming 6 black orbs. Bang! A muffled explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu pressed his hand against the cold-looking woman's chest. The 6 black orbs entered her body, and a black diagram appeared. It was a circle with 6 demon gods within it. The diagram gave off waves of black light, and the cold-looking woman struggled in pain. However, her eyes gradually lost their luster and became deathly still. Zhao Fu frowned and let go. The cold-looking woman lay there like a corpse, and Zhao Fu said, "Stand up." The cold-looking woman slowly stood up. Her movements were quite clumsy, and her expression was wooden and her eyes were empty. Zhao Fu sighed. He had wanted to use one of the 6 Desires demonic arts methods, the 6 Desires puppet technique, to control the cold-looking woman. This method not only allowed him to control her body, but also her mind. As the wife of the ancient sword sect master, if he placed her as a chess piece, she would be able to obtain information for Qin, which would be quite useful. However, it seemed that he had failed. The cold-looking woman's cultivation was too high, and her comprehension of the way of the sword was also quite powerful. Right now, Zhao Fu could only control her body, and his plan had failed. He could not stay here for long, so Zhao Fu picked up the cold-looking woman's body and turned into a ray of light, disappearing over the horizon. Boom! 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 Soon, powerful auras descended, causing the air to seem to freeze. The heavens and earth dimmed as countless experts from the ancient sword sect arrived, including the ancient sword sect master. Looking at the traces of battle and the bloodstains on the ground, he roared furiously, "Find that brat for this sect master. This sect master will cut him into 1,000 pieces and at the same time ensure the safety of the madam." Yes, the experts obeyed and turned into rays of light as they shot over the horizon. They gave off incredibly ferocious auras, and no one dared to stop them. Zhao Fu quickly escaped because he knew how dangerous that place was. If he did not leave, he would definitely be discovered. Zhao Fu would not look down on a royal kingdom sect, so he naturally acted very carefully. Chapter 1204. By now, Zhao Fu was in another world and was looking for information about the ancient sword sect. He was not in a hurry to return to Qin City because he had not gathered the 1,000 sword geniuses yet. He had only captured 5 of them, so he needed 995 more. Zhao Fu still wanted to deal with the ancient sword sect, or else he would not be able to vent his hatred. Moreover, the ancient sword sect's disciples were quite suitable for sword obsession. At the same time, Zhao Fu knew that the ancient sword sect was furious and was searching for him everywhere. They were doing everything they could to kill him, and they had even offered a high bounty and threatened others. If anyone dared to contact him, the ancient sword sect would be destroyed. The ancient sword sect was ranked 2nd in the ancient STEM domain, and since they had spoken, countless people naturally did not want to have any contact with Zhao Fu. Moreover, for the sake of the high bounty, they were searching for Zhao Fu's whereabouts. Other factions were also searching for Zhao Fu's whereabouts because Zhao Fu was too dangerous. They wanted to know Zhao Fu's goal, and this was especially so for the Netherine dynasty and Bear Mountain Kingdom. They were doing all they could to find Zhao Fu and kill Zhao Fu. This caused the inner regions of the ancient STEM domain to fall into chaos because of Zhao Fu's appearance. However, the inner regions were so big, and no one had found Zhao Fu yet. Within a mountain cave, a cold-looking woman's hands were bound by chains. Her clothes were torn, revealing a pair of snow-white things. Zhao Fu had stopped using the 6 Desires puppet technique, and the cold-looking woman had regained her senses. She looked at Zhao Fu hatefully and furiously. Zhao Fu coldly looked at her and said, "Ancient sword sect's madam, tell me all of the ancient sword sect's secrets, and I might give you a quick death." The cold-looking woman coldly harumphed and turned her head away as she said, "Don't even think about it. I won't betray the ancient sword sect. If you want to kill me, then kill me. The ancient sword sect definitely won't let you off, and when the time comes, you'll die a horrible death." Zhao Fu felt a trace of anger as he said, "Is that so? I want to see if I die first or if I destroy your ancient sword sect first. I'll definitely sacrifice your entire ancient sword sect to the Emperor Killing Sword." The cold-looking woman turned her head to the side and ignored Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu sneered as he stepped forward and grabbed the woman's exposed snow-white thing with one hand. "Are you really not afraid that I'll do something to you? I only want to know all the secrets of the ancient sword sect." After being grabbed by Zhao Fu, the cold-looking woman immediately struggled up and furiously looked at Zhao Fu as she cried out, "You perverted bastard! If you want to kill me, then kill me. I won't betray the ancient sword sect. If you dare to do anything to me, I'll kill you even if I become a ghost." Zhao Fu coldly smiled and completely ignored the cold-looking woman's words. He ripped off her clothes, revealing her body. This caused the cold-looking woman to angrily curse at Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu did not do anything else and instead left the cave. Zhao Fu had the 6 Desire Celestial Art, so he should be able to subdue the cold-looking woman. However, that would only make her body want Zhao Fu and would not be able to make her heart submit. She would still maintain her own thoughts, which meant that even if he did her, she would not reveal the ancient sword sect secrets. Before, Zhao Fu had dealt with many women like this, but most women still had their own thoughts and were not controlled by Zhao Fu. Moreover, Zhao Fu did not want to continue using that method to subdue women. However, as the wife of the ancient sword sect master, Zhao Fu evidently would not let her off easily. Before leaving, he sent in the 6 desires demonic chi, causing the cold-looking woman to fall into desire. After leaving the cave, Zhao Fu started to think about how to capture more ancient sword sect disciples. The ancient sword sect gave the order for all of their disciples to stay within the sect and not leave to prevent Zhao Fu from taking revenge on them. The ancient sword sect had not guessed that Zhao Fu's target was the disciples and not the ancient sword sect master's wife. Zhao Fu naturally would not attack the ancient sword sect, as that would be seeking death. What should he do? How could he capture the ancient sword sect disciples? After thinking about it, Zhao Fu went to the Emperor Killing Sword world and looked at the 5 people within the Killing Sword Lake. They had long since stopped struggling and were in sword obsession. The 5 of them had been geniuses that everyone looked up to in the ancient sword sect, and they were among the top disciples. Now that they had fallen to such a state, it was quite a pity. This was especially so for the woman. She looked incredibly pure and refined, and she was a famous beauty in the ancient sword sect. However, she was now turning into a killing monster. Zhao Fu collected their things and found that there were 5 tokens. These tokens were naturally from the ancient sword sect, and he would be able to sneak into the ancient sword sect. Now that the disciples had not come out, Zhao Fu could only sneak in. Moreover, most of the ancient sword sect's elders and experts had gone to search for Zhao Fu, so the inside of the ancient sword sect was quite empty, making it suitable for Zhao Fu to sneak in. After taking the tokens, Zhao Fu carefully walked towards the ancient sword sect. The ancient sword sect controlled 10 worlds, so the sect was naturally incredibly large and had countless disciples. Zhao Fu relied on the tokens to easily sneak in. Even Zhao Fu felt quite surprised that it was so easy. Just then, he had been wearing a cloak and carrying the tokens, and no one had stopped him. Now that he had entered the sect, Zhao Fu started to carefully carry out his plan. He could not capture them one by one, as there were too many of them. Capturing them one by one would take too long, and he would definitely be discovered. Zhao Fu thought of a good idea. In a hidden corner, Zhao Fu grabbed an ancient sword sect disciple and asked, "Where does the second-ranked Xiao Changfeng of the ancient sword sect live?" The disciple quickly told Zhao Fu the information he wanted, but Zhao Fu casually killed that disciple and threw his corpse into the Emperor Killing Sword world. His talent was too low and was not suitable for sword obsession, so he could only kill him. The reason Zhao Fu wanted to find Xiao Changfeng was because his strength was only below Gu Jian's and his identity was quite extraordinary. He was the grandson of one of the ancient sword sect's great elders, and if he used his name to gather everyone together, it would be quite easy. Senior apprentice brother. Harder. Just as Zhao Fu snuck into Xiao Chongfeng's courtyard, he heard a flirtatious woman's moans, as well as the sounds of something crashing. Following the sounds, Zhao Fu quickly found a young man with a trace of evil-looking aura, doing it with a bewitching and beautiful woman. The woman's figure was incredibly enticing, and her skin was like jade, and she had a pair of large breasts. Because Zhao Fu had collected information on the ancient sword sect, he knew some of the higher-ranked people. This woman was ranked 17th in the ancient sword sect, and she was called Lin Yin Er. A trace of a cold smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face. While the two of them were focused on doing it, Zhao Fu soundlessly spread out his emperor's domain, cutting off all sounds and objects. Chapter 1205. Clang, clang, clang. The 6 gray dots in Zhao Fu's right eye quickly spun as countless eerie chains giving off terrifying power suddenly flew out and shot towards a man and woman on the bed. This caused the expressions of the man and woman, who were immersed in pleasure, to fall, and they immediately tried to block. However, it was too late. The countless chains quickly bound the two of them and hung them in the air. At that moment, Zhao Fu slowly walked out. "It's you." Xiao Changfeng looked at Zhao Fu's terrifying eyes and instantly realized who Zhao Fu was. His expression fell as he yelled and started to struggle. He had never thought that such a terrifying person would have infiltrated their sect. Lin Yin Er's expression was quite unsightly, but she was relatively calm and did not resist. Zhao Fu looked at Xiao Changfeng, who was yelling and struggling, and his expression was cold as he said, "No matter how much you yell, it's useless. This place is already protected by a barrier, so you must do as I say, or I'll kill you right now." Xiao Changfeng could only stop and ask, "What do you want me to do?" Zhao Fu directly stated his goal, and had Xiao Changfeng call over the ancient sword sect's elite disciples in batches. That way, Zhao Fu could bring them into the Emperor killing barrier in batches. If there were too many people, Zhao Fu was afraid of losing control, so he had to bring them in batches. Zhao Fu planned to capture 300 or so people each time. That way, he would be able to complete the task in 3 batches and reduce the chances of being discovered. Hearing that Zhao Fu wanted to capture those sword geniuses, Xiao Changfeng immediately refused. Those people were people that the ancient sword sect focused on nurturing, and they were all destined to be extraordinary in the future. They were the future of the ancient sword sect, and if he harmed them, he might die in the future. Zhao Fu's gaze became cold. It seemed that Xiao Changfeng would only submit after being taught a lesson. "Emperor, I have a way to make them come," Lin Yin Er said flirtatiously to Zhao Fu. This caused Xiao Changfeng to look quite disbelieving, and he called out angrily, "Lil Sis Yin." Lin Yin Er ignored Xiao Changfeng's words. She was with Xiao Changfeng mainly because of his status and strength, or else she would not be his woman. She twisted her alluring body and looked at Zhao Fu flirtatiously as she said coquettishly, "Emperor, you're making me feel quite uncomfortable. You're making me very uncomfortable. Can you put me down first? I'll tell you what to do. I'll immediately tell you what to do." This caused Xiao Changfeng to feel incredibly furious because this was a betrayal of him. He immediately yelled, "Lin Yin Er, you bitch, you dare to betray the ancient sword sect? You'll definitely be punished." She was somewhat angry, and she turned to look at Xiao Changfeng and said, "Senior brother, you in?" "You," Lin Yan said, "Senior, I'm master." Following this, she turned her head and revealed her alluring body to Zhao Fu. She was not wearing anything, and she flirtatiously smiled at Zhao Fu as she spoke. "Crown Prince, our ancient sword sect has a special method of sending messages, called Sword Light Message. I can do it, and I only need a bit of my senior apprentice brother's aura to bring those people here. However, can you let them live?" Zhao Fu did not directly agree because he was angry at everyone from the ancient sword sect. He only said, "I can think about it." Lin Yin was startled, but she still maintained a smile and nodded. She sat down at the desk next to her and took out a talisman with the image of a flying sword from her storage ring. After that, she made a grabbing motion towards Xiao Changfeng. Some of Xiao Changfeng's aura was captured by her, and then she infused it into those talismans. With a wave of her sword finger, those talismans transformed into rays of sword light that shot out. Zhao Fu interrupted her because Zhao Fu did not trust the woman in front of him. So he said, "I want to check these talismans." Lin Yin-er's expression did not change, and she gave a flirtatious smile as she handed the talismans to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu carefully checked these talismans, mainly because he was afraid that they would summon the Ancient Sword Sect's experts. This was within the Ancient Sword Sect, and once Zhao Fu's identity was exposed, it would be very difficult for him to escape. As such, he naturally had to be extremely careful. Lin Yin-er looked at Zhao Fu, who was carefully checking the talismans, and she stealthily stretched out her hand towards Zhao Fu's lower body. She felt a bit shocked and delighted. It seemed that Zhao Fu's body was reacting to her. Lin Yin did not hesitate and quickly squatted down, took off her clothes, and started to serve Zhao Fu. Xiao Chongfeng's face was completely red, and he felt like he was going to explode from anger. His woman, Lin Yin, was serving another man in front of him, calling him a slut, whore, and other vulgar words. Zhao Fu came back to his senses and frowned as he pushed Lin Yin away. Lin Yin lay on the ground with a lewd look on her face as she said, "Emperor, just let me serve you once, and you already want me." Zhao Fu felt quite angry and threw a piece of clothing at her as he said, "Put it on." Seeing that Zhao Fu was angry, Lin Yin could only reluctantly put on her clothes. However, she inwardly rejoiced that her life had been saved. Swish, 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 Zhao Fu activated the countless talismans, which turned into rays of sword light that shot out towards various parts of the sect. Now, Xiao Chongfeng was useless. Zhao Fu casually waved his hand, and a blood-red crack appeared as countless chains dragged him into the killing sword lake. Xiao Chongfeng continuously cursed at Zhao Fu before calming down. Lin Yin felt quite startled. Even though she did not know what Zhao Fu had done to Xiao Chongfeng, it was evident that he would not have a good ending. She obediently sat on the table and did not dare to move. She could not help but lick her lips, reminiscing about Zhao Fu's taste. By now, some of the nearby Ancient Sword Sect disciples had arrived. Even though they did not often see Xiao Chongfeng, with his status and strength, they did not dare to not give him face. Zhao Fu had long since set up a barrier nearby, and as soon as the Ancient Sword Sect disciples arrived, countless cold chains stretched out and easily subdued them before dragging them into the Killing Sword Lake. Lin Yin watched on from the side in shock, not understanding why Zhao Fu had captured so many Ancient Sword Sect disciples. Moreover, he had taken such a risk. It was definitely not just for revenge. People were dragged into the Killing Sword Lake, and soon there were 300 or so people. Zhao Fu had Lin Yin continue with the second wave, and rays of sword light shot out, drawing people over. These were all geniuses of the way of the sword, and those who had gone into sword obsession would definitely be incredibly powerful. Zhao Fu's 100 or so sword obsession cultivators had almost reached an undying and indestructible state, and they could not be killed. Chapter 1206. Very quickly, Zhao Fu had captured 600 or so people, and he had completed more than half of his quest. Zhao Fu wanted to capture as many people as possible, or even kill as many as he could. After all, even if he captured 1,000 people, 1,000 people was not much to a sect with 10 worlds. After all, the Qin Empire's population had reached 100 billion or so, and the Ancient Sword Sect, which had developed for so long, had a shocking number of people. These disciples were the future of the Ancient Sword Sect, and now that the older generation had died, the Ancient Sword Sect would have to rely on them. Only by continuously having talented disciples could the sect continuously become stronger, or else it would continue to decline. The more Zhao Fu killed, the more people he captured. This would weaken the Ancient Sword Sect's foundation, and perhaps he would be able to exhaust the Ancient Sword Sect to death. However, even though Zhao Fu's idea was good, it was not very realistic. Soon, Zhao Fu sensed a powerful aura flying through the barrier. Luckily, Zhao Fu had taken a domain pill and had unlocked his perception, so he was very sensitive to the dangers around him. Zhao Fu immediately grabbed Lin Yin Air and quickly left the ancient sword sect. By now, 5 or 6 elders had charged in, and sensing the remnant aura, their expressions fell. They loudly gave orders to activate the sect's great formation and investigate the people who had snuck in. They found that 600 or so disciples had disappeared. This caused the entire ancient sword sect to be furious, and they confirmed Zhao Fu's identity. Now, countless people from the ancient sword sect were chasing after him. Yet he had snuck into the ancient sword sect and killed 600 or so elite disciples. This was simply infuriating. That person was simply too arrogant and daring to do such a thing at a time like this. Countless people were incredibly shocked, and the ancient sword sect entered a state of alert. The ancient sword sect's sect master roared, his voice shaking the surroundings. "We must destroy that boy's soul and sacrifice his head to the ancient sword sect. Right now, the ancient sword sect will not rest until that boy is dead." Countless people heard about this and felt quite shocked. This person had first stolen the ancient sword sect's madam and had snuck into the ancient sword sect to kill 600 or so elite disciples. He was quite daring. This was the first time someone had made the ancient sword sect suffer such humiliation and anger. Now, their hatred was indescribable, and his return had thrown the entire inner region into chaos. Everyone had a feeling that that person could wield the killing sword and had 3 Emperor stars. He was definitely a world-shaking genius, and since they had let him escape back then, he would definitely madly take revenge. Now, he had returned. The Netherine dynasty and Bear Mountain dynasty could not help but become wary. They did not want to become a joke like the ancient sword sect. At the same time, the 3 sides issued orders to kill him, increasing the reward by more than 10 times, and forbidding everyone from having any contact with Zhao Fu. Everything was for the sake of killing Zhao Fu. They could not allow him to continue, or else the danger would only be greater. Countless people could not resist the temptation and started to search for Zhao Fu, wanting to kill Zhao Fu and obtain the huge reward. Now, the inner regions of the ancient stem domain were even more chaotic, and all of this was because of Zhao Fu. By now, the sky had darkened, and the night sky was completely dark. There were no stars or moon, and it was like a black cloth covering the sky, making people feel quite afraid. Zhao Fu brought Lin Yin Air to the mountain cave from before. Now, Zhao Fu did not dare to casually appear in cities, and he could only hide in the wilderness to avoid being discovered. Within the mountain cave, the cold-looking woman's face was red, and her body twisted as she continuously moaned. There was a puddle of water on the ground. Lin Yin Air felt quite shocked to see the cold and aloof sect master's wife being treated like this. The scene was quite alluring. However, the sect master's wife was quite lewd, and she desperately needed a man. Zhao Fu wondered if that emperor had played with her before. It seemed that she had already been ravaged by him. Lin Yin Air could not help but feel quite envious. After tasting Zhao Fu, she had wanted to do it with Zhao Fu. However, the timing was not good, and he had seen her doing it with Xiao Chong. He would definitely mind. Of course, Lin Yin Air did not lose confidence, as Zhao Fu still had a reaction to her body. Zhao Fu had left restrictions on Lin Yin Air's body, so he was not worried that she would run. He turned and entered the Emperor Killing Sword world, and he had a look at the number of people he had dragged into the Killing Sword Lake. There were 634 people, and he still needed 366 people to complete the quest. After returning to the mountain cave, he found that the 2 women were already tangling together and making lewd noises. Zhao Fu speechlessly stopped them and suppressed the 6 desires' demonic qi within the cold-looking woman's body. The cold-looking woman gradually returned to normal, and she became cold again. Looking at Lin Yin Air hugging her, she asked in surprise, "Yin Air, why are you here? Also, let go of me." Lin Yin Air smiled and let go of the cold-looking woman as she said, "I saw that big sis Fei Shue was in pain, so I helped her." This caused the cold-looking woman's face to become red, but looking at Zhao Fu standing by the side, she could not help but curse. "You perverted demon, I'll definitely kill you." Zhao Fu disdainfully harumphed. Do you still want to do what you did just then? The cold-looking woman, Ling Feishue, felt her expression fall. Thinking about that shameful scene from before, she gritted her teeth and endured it, no longer cursing at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu took out some firewood and started to roast a few wild rabbits. He had been busy over the past few days and had not had a good meal, so he wanted to fill his stomach. He had not completed the quest yet, so he needed to think of other methods. However, things would become difficult from now on. The Ancient Sword sect was on high alert, and any method would be incredibly dangerous. Zhao Fu could not help but sigh. Ling Feishue started to ask Lin Yan'er why she was here and what had happened, and Lin Yan'er gave a simple explanation of what had happened. After hearing Lin Yan'er's words, thinking about how so many of the Ancient Sword sect's extraordinary disciples had fallen into Zhao Fu's hands, Ling Feishue furiously asked, "What did you do to the Ancient Sword sect's disciples? And what about those 5 disciples?" Zhao Fu raised his head and looked at Ling Feishue as he coldly replied, "Of course, to have them comprehend the peerless way of the sword. Do you want to see?" Following this, Zhao Fu waved his hand, and a figure appeared before everyone. She had a graceful figure and beautiful looks, and she gave off a refreshing and refined aura. However, her eyes were blood red and fangs grew out her mouth. She held a blood-red sword and gave off an intense killing sword intent, causing the cave to instantly become cold. She was one of the first 5 people that had been captured. Seeing this person, Ling Feishue and Lin Yan'er could not help but cry out. This was the 5th-ranked woman in the Ancient Sword sect, and most people called her 5th senior apprentice sister. However, she seemed to be a completely different person, and she was like a puppet filled with killing intent. Chapter 12:07. Zhao Fu coldly laughed as he replied, "That's right. In the future, everyone in the Ancient Sword sect will become like this and go into sword obsession, allowing the Emperor Killing Sword world to regain its former power. The Emperor Killing Sword world has the power to kill celestials, and when that time comes, I'll fill the entire ancient STEM domain with corpses." Lin Yan'er and Ling Feishue felt incredibly shocked. They knew that Zhao Fu was the Killing Sword Master, and the ripples from his Killing Sword intent had spread to hundreds of worlds. They clearly understood how terrifying this power was. However, they had never thought that this power could kill celestials. Celestials were the ultimate existences in the world, and those lofty higher beings were like trash in front of celestials. This was enough to show how terrifying celestials were. Now that the person in front of them had such terrifying power, they could not help but feel shocked. If he said that he would fill the entire ancient STEM domain with corpses, it would be possible for him to do so. Ling Feishue's face became pale. How could the Ancient Sword sect offend such a terrifying person? It was possible that the Ancient Sword sect would perish at his hands. Offending such a person for the Ancient Sword sect was simply not worth it. "Tell me, what do I have to do for you to spare the Ancient Sword sect? I'll agree to anything you want. If you want my body, I'll give it to you now," Ling Feishue said in a low voice for the sake of the Ancient Sword sect's future. Zhao Fu said in a slightly mocking tone, "Do you think there's any chance of reconciliation between the Ancient Sword sect and me? Also, do you think your body can get rid of my anger and the humiliation I suffered that day?" Ling Feishue looked at Zhao Fu and understood that there was no way to reconcile this matter. She lowered her head and did not say anything else, a trace of sorrow on her face. Lin Yan'er smiled as she sat next to Zhao Fu. She had already decided to follow Zhao Fu for the rest of her life. A peerless genius like Zhao Fu would bring her unimaginable benefits in the future. "Emperor, I want to eat it too." Hearing her alluring voice, Zhao Fu's expression was calm and did not change much as he handed the roasted rabbit to her. However, Lin Yan'er smiled and leaned over, stretching her hand under Zhao Fu's body, saying, "Emperor, I want to eat this." Zhao Fu frowned and slapped her hand away. Lin Yan'er pouted with a trace of dissatisfaction. She took the roasted rabbit from Zhao Fu and began to eat it. Zhao Fu also picked up a roasted rabbit and ate it. Soon he finished it, Then, he looked at Ling Feishue, who was hanging there. As the mistress of the ancient sword sect, she would still be very important in the future. Zhao Fu picked up a hair, walked in front of her, and said, "Here." Ling Feishue remained silent and turned her head away. Zhao Fu was slightly angry as he threatened, "You want to experience that feeling again, right?" Ling Feishue raised her head angrily and glared at Zhao Fu as if she wanted to eat Zhao Fu alive. Zhao Fu handed the roasted rabbit to her, and Ling Feishue ferociously took a bite, as if she was biting Zhao Fu's flesh. Zhao Fu stood in front of her and looked at the snow-white thing in front of Ling Feishue's chest. Ling Feishue had not been wearing anything this entire time. Sensing Zhao Fu's gaze, Ling Feishue could not help but curse in a low voice, "Perverted thief." Zhao Fu did not mind and waved his hand, undoing the chains around Ling Feishue, and he threw a piece of clothing to her. He then put the roasted rabbit to the side. Ling Feishue hurriedly put on the clothes to cover her body before sitting on the ground and looking at Zhao Fu. She picked up the roasted rabbit and ferociously ate it as if she was eating Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu ignored Ling Feishue's gaze and thought about his future plans. He still needed 300 or so people to complete the quest, and he had not dealt much damage to the Ancient Sword Sect. However, he had humiliated the Ancient Sword Sect and caused them to be angered to death, which was a bit of a relief. Now, countless people were madly searching for him, and the Ancient Sword Sect was on guard. Zhao Fu could not think of any good ideas, and he wanted to return to Qin City and end his journey to the inner regions of the ancient stem domain. He would search elsewhere for the 300 or so people. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided to return to Qin City. It was not a good place to stay in the inner regions of the ancient stem domain, and if he was found, the consequences would be severe. The next day, Zhao Fu brought Ling Feishue and Lin Yan Air back to Qin City. Because the Emperor Killing Sword World contained Killing Sword Qi, anything that entered would be affected, so Zhao Fu did not casually throw people into the Emperor Killing Sword World. Both of them had restrictions that Zhao Fu had left in their bodies, so they could not escape and did not have the power they had before. However, at that moment, a dragon-shaped medallion flashed with light, and Zhao Fu felt quite startled. He took out the dragon-shaped medallion, which gave off a screen of light, and a few words appeared on it. "Emperor, where are you?" This medallion was given to Zhao Fu by the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group, and it was used to communicate with him. There is a limit to the distance, and it would be impossible to contact him from hundreds of worlds away. Looking at the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's message, Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. The 10,000 Dragon Financial Group had been heavily injured and had relocated to another domain, so why would they still contact him? It was possible that this was a trap, and someone else had found a way to contact Zhao Fu and pretended to be someone from the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group to contact him to lure him out. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided to go. The 10,000 Dragon Financial Group had only acted like this because of him, and Zhao Fu felt quite guilty. Back when the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group had retreated, they had not contacted each other, and Zhao Fu wanted to know about them. After giving them a place, Zhao Fu had them wait while he carefully went over. That way, he would be safe. However, when Zhao Fu arrived and saw the person in front of him, he did not have any worries. The person in front of him was a long-haired, black-clothed elder. He was the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's vice president, and they knew each other. "I'm sorry. I've caused trouble for the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group," Zhao Fu said as he cupped his hands and apologized sincerely. The 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's vice president gave a kind smile and said, "This is fate. Everything went according to plan, so you don't have to blame yourself. Also, this is the reason why I'm here." The vice president took out many spatial rings and gave them to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu looked at them and found that they were all talisman stones and high-grade corpses. There were many of them, and they would be enough for a while for Qin. Zhao Fu had never thought that the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group would become like this, and they had prepared so many things for him. It was the first time that Zhao Fu had felt so grateful toward a faction, and he felt quite touched. With so many things in front of him, Zhao Fu felt quite embarrassed to accept them, and he tried to refuse. The vice president lightly laughed. "If you want to repay us, head to the Devil Domain as soon as possible. The 10,000 Dragon Financial Group is relying on you, so don't disappoint us." Hearing this, Zhao Fu could not help but ask, "What's with the 10,000 Dragon Seal? Why do you have to go to the Devil Domain?" Chapter 1208. After returning to Qin, Zhao Fu gave a large number of talisman stones and corpses to his subordinates and had them mass-produce talisman arrows and blood god pills. At the same time, he ordered the 8 aquatic beast kings to herd all of the aquatic beasts in the fish-scale world and prepare to conquer it. So many talisman stones gave Zhao Fu a great deal of help, and Zhao Fu felt that he had the power to conquer the fish-scale world. This was exactly what Qin had been lacking. However, no matter if it was creating the talisman arrows or having the 8 aquatic beast kings chase away the aquatic beasts, they all required time, and they could not be completed in a short period of time. As such, Zhao Fu turned his attention to the people in sword obsession. He was still lacking 300 or so people. Zhao Fu ordered people to collect information on all of the sword geniuses in the surrounding worlds and then organized Eternal Knight's people to capture them. Zhao Fu left this matter to Gania. News of the sword geniuses being captured quickly spread. Similar things had happened before, and now that the scope had expanded, some sects felt a sense of danger, especially those with sword geniuses. Even though they did not know what faction had the power to so brazenly capture sword geniuses, they could not afford to offend them. As such, they could only hide and order the sword geniuses not to go out and remain within their sects. This made things much more difficult for Qin. Qin could not directly attack sects, so he could only expand the scope of capturing sword geniuses. At the same time, this caused even more panic, and none of the sword geniuses dared to step out of their sects. A terrifying, strange, and dangerous aura covered the 10 or so worlds. Some powerful factions could not help but want to investigate who was doing this, but they could not find anything. Those people were all wearing black cloaks and were very secretive, and no information was leaked. The only thing that was clear was that the person in the lead was extremely powerful in the way of the sword, and those sword geniuses could not even take a few blows from him. This made the various factions feel even more curious. Why would such a powerful expert in the way of the sword want to capture so many sword geniuses? 10 or so days later, Qin finally captured enough people. Looking at the 1,000 sword geniuses in the Killing Sword Lake, Zhao Fu grinned. After the 1,000 people were completely converted, they could also be sent to the battlefield. They could grow through slaughter, and they could also increase the Slaughter Sword World's level. The Slaughter Sword World's power would continue to increase, and that would be Zhao Fu's greatest support. In the past 10 days, Qin had been constantly making talisman arrows. He had prepared a large number of talisman arrows for Qin, which were enough to release the most terrible power. At that moment, the 8 aquatic beast kings started to drive out the aquatic beasts from the boundary of the fish-scale world. They gathered all of the aquatic beasts and once again launched an aquatic beast tide, taking this opportunity to break through the fish-scale world's final defenses. The remaining fish-scale people could sense these changes, and the atmosphere in the entire fish-scale world became quite oppressive. It was filled with an aura of death, and countless people started to despair. The people from the remaining 3 fish-scale continents had all gathered together to discuss, and all of their expressions were quite unsightly. Yuxian was also among them, and his expression was extremely unsightly. Previously, he had the ability to fight against Imperial Prince Qin, but now he felt extremely powerless. Had his strength regressed? Just Tina Arthur alone would be enough to stop him. If Imperial Prince Qin personally acted, he would not be a match for him at all. Yuxian clearly understood that he and Imperial Prince Qin were no longer on the same level. Everyone started to discuss amongst themselves. What should we do now? Qin wants to completely destroy our fish-scale world. If we had known that Qin had a way to counter us, we would not have signed the contract with Imperial Prince Qin. We definitely couldn't have allowed Qin to unify the human world. That's right. Who would have thought that Qin would be able to unify the human world so quickly and have such great power? We should have destroyed Qin back then. That way, none of this would have happened. The fish-scale world might really be finished. The 8 aquatic beast kings are herding all of the aquatic beasts in the world for a final wave of attacks. We only have 3 billion soldiers left. How can we stop them? Right now, we can only increase the number of soldiers. Even though they don't have stage 1 strength, they'll be of some use. I really regret drawing the 8 aquatic beast kings to the human world. Back then, the human world wasn't conquered, and the 8 aquatic beast kings were subdued by Qin. Now, they've become weapons for Qin to attack the fish-scale world. If only we had subdued the 8 aquatic beast kings back then. AI, now that things have come to this, there's no point in regretting. Hurry and spread this news and have the outside world madly attack Qin. Only by delaying Qin's forces will we have a trace of hope. Otherwise, we'll just sit there and wait to die. The meeting lasted for half a day before it ended. The leaders of the countless factions returned and immediately started to recruit soldiers. They told everyone about the dire situation and that they could only desperately defend or die. Hearing the various factions say this, the ordinary fish-scale people truly despaired and did not have any hope at all. The 3 continents started to defend with all their might, continuously strengthening their defenses and increasing the number of soldiers. Most of them had stage 0 to 7 or 0 to 8 cultivation, and there were 2 billion of them in total. This greatly increased the 3 continents' defensive strength. The news from the fish-scale world caused the expressions of the people in the outside world to fall. If they allowed Qin to fully conquer the fish-scale world, Qin would take over 2 worlds. Qin's strength would greatly increase, and when that time came, their situation would become even more difficult. They did not hesitate for too long before coming to a consensus. They could not allow Qin to conquer the fish-scale world, and they would do everything they could to stop him. The 3 worlds continued to gather countless soldiers, preparing to tie down Qin's forces and make it so that Qin would not be able to conquer the fish-scale world. The Devil Horn Empire's ruler, Yao Ming, felt immense pressure from Qin. His intuition had definitely been right. Qin was the Devil Horn Empire's greatest enemy. He now regretted not attacking Qin earlier. After receiving this news, the Dark Demon world continuously gathered soldiers and prepared to attack Qin. They also felt that they could not allow Qin to conquer the fish-scale world, or else the surrounding worlds would be doomed. The movements of the large worlds caused an austere aura to spread out in all directions, and the air became much heavier. The surrounding worlds sensed that a massive battle was about to erupt, and they started to pay close attention to this. At the same time, after hearing about this, Zhao Fu's expression became quite serious. This was not a joke, and Zhao Fu felt immense pressure. Chapter 1209. Zhao Fu ordered Qin's people to make preparations to prevent anything unexpected from happening. This time, they had to take down the fish-scale world. Within the fish-scale world's largest continent, a few people with powerful auras were discussing in a hidden corner. The fish-scale world is about to be taken down by Qin. What should we do? There's nowhere to run now. Let's join Qin then. They treat those who surrender quite well and won't treat us like untouchables. I also feel that surrendering is for the best. Resisting is pointless, and I don't want to die. But are we just going to surrender? I feel that if we go to Qin, we'll only be able to keep our lives and won't be valued by Qin. If we bring some gifts, perhaps Qin will reward us greatly, and we'll be valued as well. We'll be able to live our lives happily. Hearing this, the others smiled and nodded in agreement. That was the kind of life they wanted. Another person said, "What gift should we give? I don't feel like there's much to give. We don't have many people, and Qin won't be interested in us at all." Everyone sank into their thoughts, thinking about what gifts they could give to Qin. The best gift would be something that could surprise Qin. One of the people gave a mysterious smile and said a few words to the people next to him, causing them to feel delighted. Within a hidden and luxurious courtyard, a boy with a golden dragon tail happily hugged a ball and played with it. Beside him, a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure and tender skin sat by his side. Seeing how happy the boy was, she could not help but smile, looking quite enchanting. Suddenly, the sound of fighting sounded out, causing the woman and the boy to feel quite startled. Following this, a person covered in blood rushed in and shouted, "Madam, second young master, hurry and leave. Someone has discovered this place and wants to capture you." Hearing this, the woman's expression fell and she hurriedly grabbed the boy's hand. Just as she was about to run, a few powerful auras descended. Hearing this, the woman's expression fell and she hurriedly grabbed the boy's hand. Just as she was about to run, a few powerful auras descended. "Madam, second young master, hurry and leave." The bloodied person shouted as he blocked in front of them. The woman looked at the person covered in blood gratefully and picked up the little boy as she ran. Seeing everything in front of him, the little boy looked quite scared. A few people giving off powerful auras coldly laughed and sent out powerful attacks, killing the person covered in blood before attacking the woman and the boy. The woman and the little boy were not weak, but they were still not a match for those people. They were injured in a few moves and taken away. In Qin's imperial palace, Zhao Fu was also reading memorials. A guard came in to report a piece of news, which surprised Zhao Fu. He nodded and let them in. A few fish scale experts nervously walked in and respectfully called out, "We greet your Majesty, Qin." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. "Get up. You did a good job. Qin won't treat you badly." Hearing this, they were completely relieved and hurriedly thanked Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu did not pay them any mind and gave them some rewards before ordering them to leave. He then brought in a woman and a little boy. "Mom, he's a big bad person. He even tried to kill me last time," the little boy said as he hid behind the woman in fear after seeing Zhao Fu. Now that the woman was brought here, she understood who this handsome young man was, and she said in a cold voice, "Your Majesty Qin, what you're doing is too despicable. I hope you let us go." Zhao Fu could not help but lightly laugh as he said, "Do you really think that's possible? You're the things that can threaten Yu Xin the most. With you, perhaps Qin will be able to easily obtain a continent." One of them was Yu Xin's little brother, and the other was Yu Xin's mother. Zhao Fu had never thought that a few fish-scale people who had surrendered would bring such good gifts. In that case, Qin would have even more confidence in taking down the fish-scale world. The virtuous-looking woman said coldly, "I won't let you threaten Xian Air. If you want to kill me, then kill me. However, please spare Ling Air. He's just a child." The Ling Air she spoke of was most likely the little boy hiding behind her. Zhao Fu had always been concerned about this little boy's special ability, and he could not help but look at the little boy. This made the little boy feel even more afraid, and he hid behind the virtuous-looking woman, not daring to reveal himself. He grabbed his mother's hand and trembled. To him, Zhao Fu was the worst and most terrifying person in the world. The golden dragon looked at the little boy and said to Zhao Fu, "This little boy most likely has 1,000 worlds constitution and can easily travel between worlds. He also has a powerful ability to break through barriers, which is quite rare in the Heaven Awakened world." Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and ordered people to take the little boy away. The virtuous-looking woman immediately hugged the little boy and said harshly, "What are you doing to my Ling Air?" Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "Don't worry, we won't harm him, but we don't like people who resist. Also, we have something to talk to you about in private." The virtuous-looking woman's expression was quite unsightly, and she thought for a moment before comforting the little boy and telling him to go with someone else. The little boy looked at his mother worriedly, but in the end, he was followed out. Zhao Fu once again said courteously, "The fish-scale world no longer has any hope. Yu Xin's abilities are quite good, and if you can convince him to join Qin, Qin will definitely treat him well. Also, Qin will fully nurture your son, Yu Ling. I hope you can consider him." The virtuous-looking woman's name was Yu Qin Shui, and she shook her head, saying, "I won't make Xian Air submit to you. He's the fish-scale world's world protector and should protect the fish-scale world, not betray it. Hearing this, a trace of coldness appeared in Zhao Fu's eyes, and he said with a trace of threat, "Are you sure? We have limited patience." Yu Qingxue resolutely nodded. To have such an outstanding son like Yu Xian was the pride of her life, and even if she died, it would be worth it. Seeing her resolute gaze, Zhao Fu coldly harumphed. "Looks like you won't know your wrongs until you've been taught a lesson." Clang! Clang! The sound of chains rang out as two chains shot out from the air and bound up Yu Qingshue's hands, pulling her into a cross. Yu Qingshue's expression fell as she coldly cried out, "What are you doing?" Zhao Fu did not reply to her, and 6 balls of pitch-black demonic qi appeared in his hand. Zhao Fu pressed down on Yu Qingxue, sending the 6 desires demonic qi into Yu Qingshue's body. Yu Qingxue immediately felt her body heat up, and her breathing became heavier, wanting to do it with a man. Yu Qingxue found out what Zhao Fu had done to her, and she cursed at Zhao Fu, "You licentious fellow." Chapter 12:10. Zhao Fu did not mind. Once Yu Qingxue suffered enough, she would submit. A while later, Zhao Fu looked at Yu Qingxue and saw that her dress was completely soaked, and Yu Qingshue's body was covered in sweat. However, the wettest part was Yu Qingshue's skirt. It was dripping with water, and a large area of the floor was wet. Zhao Fu could not help but feel quite shocked. Could this be the advantage of water race women? Seeing that she could not take it anymore, Zhao Fu walked over and suppressed the 6 desires demonic qi within her body, causing her to temporarily regain her consciousness. "Have you thought it through?" Hearing Zhao Fu's words, Yu Qingxue angrily cursed. "I want to kill you right now, you bastard." Zhao Fu coldly laughed and tore apart Yu Qingshue's drenched clothes, revealing Yu Qingshue's voluptuous body to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and hugged her, while Yu Qingxue vigorously resisted. Zhao Fu's hand also moved, and after forcefully kissing her, he said in an evil voice, "I'll give you one last chance. As long as you convince Yu Xian to surrender, we definitely won't harm you. However, if you don't agree, we will immediately taste your body in front of your son and show him how lewd his mother is. After I conquer the fish-scale world, we will also ravage your body in front of Yu Xian and show him. We will continuously torture him, and we will do this in front of everyone who knows you." Yu Qingxue gritted her teeth as tears danced in her eyes. She looked at Zhao Fu hatefully, wanting to tear Zhao Fu into 10,000 pieces. Zhao Fu's gaze was cold as he looked at Yu Qingxue. Just as he was about to take off his clothes, he called out towards the door, "Bring Yu Ling in." "No, I promise you." Seeing that Zhao Fu really wanted to do that, Yu Qingxue couldn't help but sob and agree. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and had the guards not bring Yu Qingxue in, and he undid the chains. Because of the torture from before, Yu Qingshue's legs were powerless as she sat on the ground and continuously sobbed. Looking at her pitiful look, Zhao Fu calmly took out a piece of clothing and gave it to her. Yu Qingxue took the Zhao Fu clothes and stopped crying. She slowly put on her clothes and stood up coldly. Looking at her appearance, Zhao Fu frowned and said in a dignified voice, "We don't like you like this. Smile for us." Yu Qingxue felt quite angry, but she endured it and forced out a trace of a smile. Zhao Fu lightly laughed and said in satisfaction, "Don't worry. As long as you can make Yu Xian submit, we will treat you well and definitely won't harm you. You should know that the fish-scale world cannot stop Qin." Yu Qingxue was also thinking about this, and she understood that Qin was right. For her 2 sons, she would submit in the end. As for herself, she did not care too much. "Mom, are you all right?" A while later, the doors opened and Yu Ling ran in. He stepped on a large puddle of water and stumbled, almost falling to the ground. Yu Qingshue's face was red as she picked up Yu Ling and left the palace. Following this, Zhao Fu gathered his subordinates and told them about this. This made them feel quite delighted. With Yu Qingshui's help, they naturally had more confidence in taking down the fish scale world. However, this was quite despicable. The various factions started to make preparations to attack the fish scale world. 3 days later, before Qin even started to attack, the various worlds started to ferociously attack Qin. Qin's factions also started to fight, and Zhao Fu led his people to the eastern continent. Because of Yao Ming, Zhao Fu had to go to the eastern continent. As for the fish scale world's attack, Zhao Fu left it to Tina Pendragon and Wang Jian. Zhao Fu felt quite at ease with them. The two sides did not have much to say and directly started to attack. The allied army swept towards the Great Wall like an unstoppable flood. The Devil Beast army roared, shaking the heavens as they continuously attacked. Apart from this, the large creatures from the three worlds also exploded out with powerful auras, spreading out like wild gales. Looking at the incoming allied army, Zhao Fu gave a trace of a cold smile and shouted, "Fire!" Swish, 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 rays of white light, giving off incredibly sharp auras, tore through the sky, leaving behind traces of light. Under the massive rain of arrows, countless people felt a wave of terror. Chi, chi, chi. Countless arrows descended, and as the rays of light flashed past, countless soldiers' bodies were instantly cut in half by the rays of light. Blood flew everywhere, and the Allied army suffered massive losses. It was not just the Allied soldiers. Even the devil beasts were pierced by the rays of light. 10 or so rays of light tore apart a 100-meter-long devil beast body, causing blood to pour out. The scene was incredibly terrifying. This caused the countless Allied soldiers to feel incredibly shocked. They had seen Qin use this move before, but because there were not many of them, they could only use it once or twice at most. Qin did not have this move anymore. However, there were 3 or 4 times as many arrows as before. This was especially so for the devil beasts. They were shot out by massive ballistae, and they were many times more powerful than normal arrows. Even the devil beasts with powerful constitutions could not stop them. These ballistae were naturally the results of Qin's modifications to the dragon-slaying ballistae. They were mostly made of gold materials, and even though the arrows they shot out were much weaker than the real dragon-slaying ballistae, they were still incredibly powerful. Swish, 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 as the Allied army watched on in shock, Qin once again shot out countless talisman arrows, which tore through the air. The sharpness of the arrows made countless people feel like they were about to die. There's more? What's going on? The Allied army immediately gave the order to stop attacking, and Yao Ming's expression was quite unsightly as he ordered the Devil Beast army to stop. They had also lost many Devil Beasts just then. Qin immediately suppressed the battle. This was how terrifying the talisman arrows were. However, even though they had such an effect, they had used up a massive amount of talisman arrows. They had used up more than half of the talisman stones that the 10,000 Dragon Financial Group's vice president had given them. Even though they felt quite pained, since they had achieved their goal, Zhao Fu felt that it was worth it. On the Dark Demon World side, they were suppressed by Qin's talisman arrows and were forced to stop. Over at the most important battlefield in the fish scale world, the 8 aquatic beast kings had driven out 4 million aquatic beasts, which were split into 2 groups to attack the 2 continents. Each group had 1 billion soldiers supporting them, and Qin had taken these soldiers from other armies. Their goal was to forcefully conquer the fish scale world and make it so that the fish scale world could not resist at all. Tina Pendragon was in charge of conquering the largest continent in the fish scale world. She had 5 billion soldiers and 500,000 or so terrifying devil soldiers. Chapter 12:11. The other 2 groups did not say anything, and the 8 aquatic beasts herded countless aquatic beasts towards the 2 continents. Countless Qin's soldiers roared as they followed behind the aquatic beasts and killed their way towards the fish scale continents. Swish, 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 countless spears containing terrifying power shot out, piercing through the bodies of aquatic beasts and causing countless aquatic beasts to be injured or killed. Bang, bang, Explosions continuously sounded out as the fish scale people detonated something, causing a massive explosion that killed or sent the aquatic beasts flying. The fish scale people desperately resisted, using all of their strength and all sorts of methods. They knew that if they did not go all out, the entire fish scale world would be doomed. Boom! Even though their attacks caused many aquatic beasts to die, there were still a shocking number of aquatic beasts. They gave off an unstoppable aura as they slammed against the defensive walls, causing them to instantly collapse, and countless aquatic beasts charged in. The countless fish scale people in front of them were either smashed to death or trampled to death by the aquatic beasts. Blood dyed the surrounding water red, and there were corpses everywhere. Kill! The Qin soldiers behind the aquatic beast army brandished their weapons and charged in. They started a fight with the fish scale people, and the two sides started an intense battle. A Qin soldier slashed out with his saber, sending out a sharp saber light that split two fish scale people in half. A Qin soldier held a spear and ferociously rushed forwards, stabbing his spear into a fish scale person's chest. He then vigorously shook the spear, causing the spearhead to pierce through that fish scale person's chest, killing him. A Qin soldier swung his sword, chopping off a fish scale person's arm. That fish scale person retreated in pain before being killed by a Qin soldier. The battle situation was quite clear. Qin side was suppressing the other side and continuously killed fish scale people. It was mainly because the aquatic beasts were massacring the other side, or else Qin soldiers would not have been able to kill the fish scale people so easily. The battle between the two continents collapsed, and Qin soldiers started to conquer regions one by one. Wang Jian sent out his army and surrounded the final resistance army within a valley. There were roughly 1 million or so soldiers. Seeing that they would definitely die, the fish scale people roared, "We'll live and die with the fish scale world," before charging towards Qin. Kill, kill, kill. The sight of the 1 million fish scale people fearlessly charging forward was incredibly shocking. Their auras seemed to shoot into the clouds, shaking the surroundings and causing the heavens and earth to dim. Wang Jian's gaze was cold as he raised his hand and swung it down. Puff, puff, puff. Countless archers, who had long since been prepared, shot out arrows that pierced through the fish scale people's bodies. Blood flew everywhere as fish scale people fell, but more and more fish scale people rushed up. The sounds of fighting, arrows piercing bodies, and final roars formed a tragic song. Today was the day the fish scale world perished, and it was the day the fish scale race was destroyed. The ground was littered with corpses. Out of the last 1 million people, 700,000 were mercilessly shot to death, and 200,000 chose to surrender in the end. At the same time, in the central continent, the army was ready to attack at any time. Xian, surrender. There's no hope for the fish scale world. Yu Qing Shui and Yu Ling side, as they said to Yu Xian. Yu Xian felt quite troubled. Before, when he had heard that his mother and little brother had been captured by Qin, he had been incredibly worried and furious. He had never thought that his mother would come to persuade him to surrender, while he had wanted to defend the fish scale world to the death. Now, the leaders of the various factions all looked at Yu Xian. He was the fish scale world's world protector, and his decisions would directly affect the fish scale world. If he chose to surrender, everyone would feel despair and would be forced to surrender. If he chose to fight, they would still have a trace of hope and courage to fight against Qin for the fish scale world. By now, news of Qin conquering 2 continents had spread to both sides. Qin's side had smiles on their faces, while the fish scale people's faces were pale and felt incredibly powerless. They understood that there was no hope for the fish scale world. Now, there was only 1 continent left in the fish scale world, and the outcome was set in stone. Before Yu Xian could say anything, some fish scale people had already started to surrender. The fish scale world was at the end of its road, and they did not want to meaninglessly resist and be killed by Qin. With someone taking the lead, more and more people started to surrender. Yu Qing Shui started to feel quite worried. Now that those people had surrendered, Yu Xian was not as important anymore. When that time came, that despicable Emperor Qin would definitely give the order to kill Yu Xian and Yuling Xian the fish scale world is already lost. Your mother is begging you, surrender. Yu Qing Shui said with a trace of pleading in her voice. She did not want her two sons to die. Yu Xian felt an ache in his heart, but he still hesitated. After all, he had many conflicts with Zhao Fu. Would Qin's emperor spare him and his family so easily? In the end, Yu Xian said to Tina Pendragon, I know about you and trust your character. If I surrender, I hope you can guarantee the safety of my mother and little brother. Tina Pendragon felt quite startled and thought for a moment before preparing to speak. Yu Qing Shui spoke first. Xian don't worry. Chapter 1212. News of Qin conquering the fish-scale world quickly spread, and the battle came to an end. The various worlds wanted to stall Qin and not let Qin conquer the fish-scale world, but Qin had done it in the end. Now, everyone's expressions were quite unsightly, and they could only retreat. There was no need to continue fighting, and there was no need to make pointless sacrifices. The spectating worlds felt quite shocked. Qin had been able to resist such immense pressure and conquer a world. Qin was the first faction in the surrounding 100 worlds to have two worlds. By now, no one had any objections, and they all viewed Qin as the most threatening faction. At the same time, they became much more wary of Qin. After hearing about this, Zhao Fu felt quite happy. Seeing the other worlds retreat, Qin also started to retreat and return to Qin. After returning to Qin, Zhao Fu sat on his throne, and there were countless fish-scale people kneeling below him. The person at the lead was naturally Yu Xian. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile as he said, You may all rise. Yu Xian and the fish-scale people let out a sigh of relief. It seemed that Zhao Fu would not punish them, or else he would not have allowed them to rise so easily. They all yelled, Thank you, your majesty. Zhao Fu's gaze fell on Yu Xian and the fish-scale legatees. Back then, they had some enmity with Qin, but as long as they were willing to submit and serve Qin, Zhao Fu would be magnanimous. Back when the fish-scale world had attacked the human world, they had been incredibly arrogant and had said that they would soon conquer the human world. Now, they were bowing at Qin's feet. Zhao Fu could not help but feel a sense of heroism. The world was waiting for him to conquer, and it would belong to Qin sooner or later. Li Si, Zhao Fu called out, and had him read out the imperial decree. It was to give rewards and positions to the fish-scale people. Now that they were conquering the fish-scale world, the most important thing was to pacify the people and prevent them from rebelling. The fish-scale people happily went up to receive the rewards. They had never thought that Qin would treat them so well. Not only did he not punish them, but he had also given them so many benefits. The hidden dangers they had been worried about were now gone. Your Majesty, Yu Xian lowered his head and held up the fish eye with both hands as he said respectfully, This is the fish-scale race's clan armament. Please accept it. At that moment, the fish's eyes were blue and as big as a fist. They were like gems and were incredibly beautiful, and they gave off a faint blue light and gave off a powerful water attribute aura. Now that the fish-scale world had been conquered by Qin, the fish-scale people were now part of Qin's race. As such, they could not keep their clan armament, so they could only give it to Qin. Zhao Fu smiled as he stretched out his hand and grabbed at it. Because there were simply too many nation armaments, Zhao Fu did not care too much about them. However, clan armaments were incredibly rare, and clan armaments could give all of Qin's race bloodline buffs. This was something that nation armaments could not give. Moreover, the fish-scale people only had one clan armament, unlike the human world, which had four, so the bloodline buffs were much greater. After accepting the fish eye, Zhao Fu gave out rewards to those who had contributed in this battle and concluded this matter. Following this was an internal meeting, which only those with great authority could attend. Li Si started to report on Qin's gains. Zhao Fu had obtained 50,000 cities and 35 billion people. He had subdued 2 billion stage 1 soldiers, conquered 6 kingdoms, and obtained countless resources and gold coins. The remaining 600,000 aquatic beasts had also been driven into the four-souled devil world. Zhao Fu gave a pleased smile. Adding on these gains, Qin's population had reached 150 billion and 240,000 cities. The main thing was that he had obtained 50,000 cities, which would give Qin another 50,000 beasts. Adding on the aquatic beasts that had become devils, Qin now had the power to defend against invasions from a few worlds and did not have to worry much. Following this, there were 60,000 or so fish-scale women. Most of them had noble bloodlines and had powerful phoenix chi, which provided a large amount of phoenix chi for the Emperor Phoenix statue to continue to increase its grade. Finally, there were plans for the fish-scale world in the future. Zhao Fu planned to use the water race's world as a base for his navy in the future. He would greatly develop his navy so that he would not be as passive as before when facing the water race. After dealing with these matters, Zhao Fu started to refine the clan armament. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out in the surroundings as the heavens and earth dimmed and clouds swirled. A massive blue fish appeared in the sky, giving off a massive might that caused countless fish-scale people's bloodlines to become restless. The blue fish was incredibly beautiful and was covered with fine scales. It had a pair of sapphire eyes, and it elegantly swam in the sky. Countless traces of Black Qin's fate flowed into the blue fish, causing it to go through great changes. The blue fish gradually became black, but its blue eyes did not change. Compared to its previous aura, it now gave off a trace of might and domineeringness. Deep blue light scattered down from the sky, covering the two worlds. The countless people within the worlds felt their bloodlines surge as a formless energy flowed into them. Countless fish-scale people felt a powerful wave of killing energy flow into their bloodlines. Only now did they truly become subjects of Qin, and this was a historic moment. Of course, the other subjects of Qin also received great improvements. Boom! Another explosion sounded out as golden phoenix chi flowed into the Emperor Phoenix statue like seawater. The Emperor Phoenix statue turned into a massive golden phoenix that danced in the sky, scattering down countless golden motes of light. The ripples that the Emperor Phoenix statue gave off were incredibly powerful, and they surpassed the power of an ordinary clan armament. Now that it had the phoenix chi of two worlds, the ripples were naturally quite terrifying. At the same time, countless women once again received countless benefits from the countless motes of light. Their appearances became younger, their constitutions became better, and their power also increased. The dragon phoenix within Zhao Fu's body quickly absorbed the Emperor Phoenix statue's power, and Zhao Fu was pleasantly surprised to find that the power of the Emperor Killer Curse had become slightly weaker. It seemed that a large amount of Phoenix Chi could reduce the power of the Emperor Killer Curse. In the end, Zhao Fu found that Qin's fate had also become much stronger. However, because there were still 100 regions in the fish-scale world, Qin did not have the fate of two worlds. However, with such a massive amount of fate, Zhao Fu's three Emperor stars once again received a trace of life force, and they no longer looked as lifeless as before. They could gradually recover, but it would take a long time. Chapter 12-13. A few days later, Zhao Fu came to a courtyard where Yuling was playing while Yu Qingshui sat to the side, her face red and thinking about something. Zhao Fu walked towards Yuling because after the Golden Dragon's explanation, he understood what the Thousand World Constitution was. The Thousand Worlds physique was an extremely powerful space physique. It was born with a very strong space attribute power, and it could easily break through all barriers. It could use its own power to teleport at will, and it could also travel anywhere in the world at will. Not only the lower realms underworld, but it could also go to the upper realms God realm. Normally, it would be very difficult for almighty beings to capture someone with a Thousand Worlds physique. Unless they severely injured him at the start, he would be able to easily break through even the spatial shackles of an almighty being. Zhao Fu was quite shocked by this ability. Of course, the boy was still too young and could not unleash its true power. Zhao Fu wanted to nurture him well, because he could be very useful in special situations. Zhao Fu wanted to nurture him well. Seeing Zhao Fu come in, the little boy threw himself into Yu Qingshui's arms in fear and said softly, "Mother, the bad guy is here again." Only then did Yu Qingshui react. She looked at Zhao Fu, and her face became even redder. She lightly patted Yu Ling's little head and said, "That Qin's majesty, you can't say that he's a bad person anymore, or else the consequences will be severe." Yu Ling obediently nodded. He understood that his big brother and the entire fish-scale world had submitted to him and could not say anything bad about him. "Greetings, your majesty." Yu Qingshui and Yu Ling bowed to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu nodded and did not beat around the bush, directly stating his purpose here. "This emperor wishes to take Yu Ling away from here and hand him over to a specialist to be nurtured." Yu Qingshui said hesitantly, "Your majesty, Linger is still too young now. Why don't you wait a few years?" Hearing that Zhao Fu wanted to take him away, Yu Ling hurriedly hugged Yu Qingshui and said, "Mother, I don't want to be separated from you." Zhao Fu thought about it and replied, "You don't know how dangerous the situation outside is right now. Yu Ling has the Thousand Worlds Constitution and should be nurtured as soon as possible. This is for his own good. As long as he can unleash the power of the Thousand Worlds Constitution, very few people in this world will be able to harm him. If you miss him too much, and Yu Ling can't leave you right now, we could bring him back every afternoon and take him away in the morning." Yu Qingshui was confused. "Your Majesty, may I know what the Thousand Worlds Physique is?" Zhao Fu didn't know what the Thousand Worlds Constitution was, and he had only learned about it through the Golden Dragon. As someone from the land of inheritance, Yu Qingshui naturally didn't know much either. She only knew that Yu Ling was born with powerful spatial powers. Hearing this, Zhao Fu briefly explained the information about the Thousand Worlds Physique. Yu Qingshui didn't expect Yu Ling's physique to be so strong. She was pleasantly surprised and quickly agreed. With Qin's help, she wouldn't have to worry about Yu Ling in the future. "Mother!" Seeing Yu Qingshui send him out, Yu Ling angrily called out. Yu Qingshui began to comfort Yu Ling. She told him the importance of the matter and that he could come back every day instead of being taken away by Qin. After a while, Yu Ling finally agreed obediently. Zhao Fu also gave a satisfied smile and was about to leave with Yu Ling when Yu Qingshui stopped Zhao Fu and told Yu Ling to go play for a while. Yu Ling didn't know why. She looked at her blushing mother and ran away obediently. Seeing Yu Ling leave, Yu Qingshui said gratefully, "Your Majesty, thank you for placing so much importance on Xian Air and Ling Air and for nurturing them." Zhao Fu calmly replied, "They have such great talent, and as Qin's subordinates, we will do our best to nurture them." Seeing Yu Qingshui blush and wanting to say something, Zhao Fu asked, "Is there anything else?" Yu Qingshui said with a bright red face, "I don't know why, but I keep fantasizing about doing it with your Majesty." "Has your Majesty not gotten rid of the black aura that your Majesty sent into my body?" Zhao Fu felt quite startled and had her stand up. 6 balls of demonic qi appeared in his hand, and he pressed them towards Yu Qingshui's abdomen. After the 6 balls of demonic qi entered her, Yu Qingshui's body became soft and powerless, and Zhao Fu hugged her with one arm. Yu Qingshui leaned into Zhao Fu's embrace and smelled Zhao Fu's scent. Her breathing became ragged, and her consciousness became hazy. She raised her head and kissed Zhao Fu, and she could not help but stretch her hands towards Zhao Fu's lower body. By now, Zhao Fu had once again suppressed the 6 desires demonic qi within Yu Qingshui's body, causing Yu Qingshui's consciousness to come back. Her face was red as she let go and hurriedly left Zhao Fu's embrace. Zhao Fu said calmly, "The 6 desires demonic qi within your body has been completely suppressed by we. In the future, such things will rarely happen." Thinking about what had just happened, Yu Qingshui's face became incredibly red and her heart rate sped up, causing her breathing to become ragged. She nodded, unable to say anything. Zhao Fu called Yu Ling over and planned to take him away. Yu Ling ran over and seeing his mother's red face, he asked caringly, "What's wrong, mother?" How could she tell Yuling about what had just happened? Luckily, Zhao Fu had suppressed that feeling within her body, or else if she really did that in front of Yuling, she would not be able to face anyone. Yu Shui shook her head and smiled as she said, "Mom's fine. Don't worry. Quickly leave with His Majesty and listen to His Majesty." Yuling looked at his mother and lightly nodded. Zhao Fu took Yuling away and gave him to people to train. He also prepared all kinds of cultivation items for him, all of which had powerful spatial attributes. Yu Shui looked at Zhao Fu and Yuling leave. Even though her consciousness was clear, she felt that her body's reaction was becoming more and more intense. So she ran into her room with a red face. Following this, she heard some sounds. Within a certain room, the ancient sword sex Madame Ling Feishue was twisting on her bed, doing something with her hands, and she was also making those sounds. Lin air was the same, and it was even more intense. After waiting for a few days, Zhao Fu started to check the results, which were the results of nurturing Yuling. His aura became more and more powerful. Over 100 arrows containing ferocious power shot towards Yuling facing this attack. Yuling did not feel any fear and stretched out his small hand, causing a formless barrier to spread out. The 100 or so arrows were instantly reflected back, and Zhao Fu could see that in that instant, the arrows had disappeared. However, in the next second, they had shot out from where Yuling was standing, and it was as if space had been twisted, causing the arrows to be reflected back to Yuling. Chapter 12:14. Zhao Fu smiled and continued to test Yuling's abilities. Next, he used spatial teleportation, and Yuling's body flashed everywhere incredibly quickly as if he had many clones. Yuling's body flashed everywhere incredibly quickly, and it was as if he had many clones. Afterward, Zhao Fu told Yuling to stop and gave him a few pieces of candy made from rare materials. Yuling happily accepted them and smiled as he called out to Zhao Fu several times. After a few days together, Yuling was no longer afraid of Zhao Fu, and he treated Zhao Fu like a big brother. Zhao Fu smiled and rubbed his head. He found that Yuling was quite likable. At that moment, a soldier came up and reported, "Your Majesty, something has happened in the Wilderness Divine Hall." Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded his head, after which he arrived at the desolate Divine Hall. There was a blood-red light that soared into the sky. The blood-red chi that was being emitted was extremely ferocious. It could directly injure people, causing no one to dare to approach it. Zhao Fu unleashed his emperor's domain to block the baleful blood chi and walked into the desolate god palace. A figure giving off an intense blood-red light appeared in front of Zhao Fu. It was an androgynous woman, and it was hard to tell if she was a man or a woman. However, her figure was quite voluptuous, and she wore blood-red clothes and gave off an intense, godly spirit aura. When she saw Zhao Fu, she raised her head arrogantly and said, "You are the master of this place. Lowly mortal, why don't you kneel down and worship me when you see me? Aren't you afraid of my punishment?" Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh, but he also discovered the reason. Gods were extremely prideful creatures, and they normally wouldn't submit to others. The gods cultivated by Qin were not real gods. For example, the god of light surrendered to Qin so easily because he only had a little bit of divinity left. The desolate god in front of him was different. She was one of the ancient gods, and she had a complete divine spark. Although she was not as terrifying as when she was at her peak, her power was still terrifying. Naturally, she would not submit to Qin so easily. Seeing that Zhao Fu did not place her in his eyes at all, the desolate god said furiously, "Lowly person, you're seeking death. You dare to offend this god?" Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the desolate god punched out, bringing with it a powerful fist wind. Everything in the surroundings was affected, and cracks appeared on the ground and walls. Zhao Fu coldly laughed and took out the death ray's sword and slashed. A gray sword light flashed out, splitting the terrifying fist energy in half and causing it to dissipate into a wild gale. The desolate god's expression fell. She had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so powerful. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed. Do you think a godly spirit that has been dead for countless years is a true godly spirit? Even if you're a real god, I'm not afraid of you. I can still kill you. The desolate god felt humiliated and roared as she exploded out with a powerful aura and rushed at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu did not move, and the golden pupil in his left eye started to spin. Chains shot out from the air, binding up the desolate god that was about to attack. The desolate god vigorously struggled and yelled, "Lowly mortal, let go of this god, or this god will make you die a horrible death." Zhao Fu's eyes flashed with a cold light, and a few blood-red arcs of lightning followed the chains and hit the desolate god, causing it to howl in terror and pain. Zhao Fu had used the God-Killer's power. Before, Zhao Fu had obtained the God-Killer profession and God-Killer power, which he had fused into his Emperor's profession. Under normal circumstances, he did not use the God-Killer power very often, nor did he fight with godly spirits. Right now, the God-Killer power was the most suitable to torture this desolate god. After a while, the desolate god begged, "Despicable mortal, let go of this god, and this god will not punish you for your offense." Hearing this, Zhao Fu was quite displeased and increased the number of arcs of lightning, causing the desolate god to howl in pain in the air. It struggled to break free from the chains, and its aura became weaker and weaker. The desolate god could not bear the pain and yelled, "All right, mortal, don't torture this god. Mortal, don't torture this god. If you're willing to worship this god will give you unimaginable benefits." Huh? Zhao Fu looked quite confused. This desolate god actually wanted him to worship her? How was that possible? How could he worship a godly spirit? He had even killed godly spirits a few times, and now it should be a godly spirit submitting to him. Zhao Fu continued to increase the number of arcs of lightning. The desolate god continuously howled, and her face twisted in pain. She powerlessly struggled and weakly said, "This god is willing to submit to you. Don't torture this god." Zhao Fu was still quite displeased, and thinking about that godly spirit's arrogant tone, he said, "You should call us master now." "No," the desolate god yelled. She would never say such a humiliating thing. Zhao Fu did not say anything and continued to torture the desolate god. In the end, she could not take it anymore and cried out, "Master." Zhao Fu was quite satisfied as he put her down and asked, "What unimaginable benefits did you say before?" Zhao Fu was quite interested in this. Before, the desolate god had said that worshipping her would bring unimaginable benefits, and Zhao Fu was quite curious about what those benefits were. The desolate god was still quite angry. She had actually called a mortal master. This was the greatest humiliation in her life, so she did not reply to Zhao Fu. Seeing that Zhao Fu planned to continue using his God-Killer power, the desolate god was given a big fright and hurriedly said, "If you help me recover my divine power, I can let you enter the desolate god world and make you my divine guard." That's it. Zhao Fu felt quite disappointed. Who would want to become her divine guard? Zhao Fu was not interested at all. Seeing Zhao Fu's disdainful look, the desolate god angrily yelled, "Don't look down on my divine guards. They have the ability to control blood god demons. They are incredibly terrifying and a minor figure like you would never have seen them before." Hearing this tone, Zhao Fu could not help but want to use his God-Killer power again. The golden dragon suddenly said, "I know about blood god demons, and they are indeed terrifying monsters. It said that only very few desolate gods can create them." Zhao Fu paused and asked the golden dragon, "What are blood god demons? Are they really very powerful?" The golden dragon replied seriously, Blood god demons are monsters created from God's blood, and they are incredibly savage and evil. They can suck a person's blood dry from thousands of meters away, and they are very difficult to kill. Firstly, they do not have a precise form, and they can transform into all sorts of creatures. They can even parasitize people's bodies, and ordinary people will not be able to discover them. Also, because of the divine blood, countless low-level creatures and races are greatly suppressed. If they encounter a blood god fiend god, they can only be tortured to death. Moreover, the blood god fiend god is a forbidden technique in the divine realm, and many gods are quite afraid of it. Chapter 12:15. In actuality, it was not like he had picked up a treasure. The desolate blood divinity was the reward for placing first in the ancient stem banquet, so it was naturally not simple. Hurry up and hand over the method to create blood god demons. Zhao Fu looked at the desolate god as countless arcs of lightning appeared in his hand as he said threateningly. The desolate god looked at the arcs of lightning in Zhao Fu's hand in fear and cried out, "It's useless even if I tell you. Without this god's power, you'll never be able to create it. Moreover, it requires specialized divine guards to control it, or else it might go out of control at any moment." Arc, arc, arc. The arcs of lightning in Zhao Fu's hand quickly shot out and landed on the desolate god's body, causing her to cry out in pain. "Are you going to tell me or not? Also, watch your tone. You should be the one asking me to tell you something," Zhao Fu said as he coldly harumphed. The desolate god was incredibly angry and gripped her fists, almost wanting to fight with Zhao Fu again. However, she clearly understood that with her current strength, she was not a match for Zhao Fu at all. Moreover, the aura that Zhao Fu gave off was incredibly powerful and dangerous, and it felt like he was the king of a massive kingdom. Zhao Fu's terrifying eyes stared at the desolate god, and the golden pupil in his left eye started to spin. The sound of chains rang out, and it looked like it was about to shoot out. The desolate god was given a big fright and hurriedly blocked with her hands as she cried out, "This god will tell you. Don't do that." Zhao Fu lightly harumphed and put away the chains as he said, "Tell me. We don't have much time to waste with you. If you don't do well, we will refine you." Hearing that Zhao Fu was going to refine her, the desolate god immediately became much more obedient and said, "The core of blood god demons is the desolate god blood. Ordinary desolate god blood won't do, and we need an even more noble desolate god blood, which is the desolate god royal blood. This god has a bit of the desolate god royal bloodline, so your god royal bloodline is incredibly noble. A god royal bloodline is a king amongst godly spirits, and just thinking about it, you can see how terrifying it is. A minor figure like you can't possibly understand it. It's even more powerful than some sovereign bloodlines." In the beginning, the origami spoke quite honestly. However, when it came to her bloodline, she couldn't help but become proud. Boom! A massive emperor's aura, bringing with it the might of a sovereign, pressed down towards the desolate god. No one could stop it, and all creatures would have to submit. This caused the desolate god to feel quite startled. Her face became pale, and her body felt weak as she looked at Zhao Fu in shock. She had never thought that Zhao Fu would have sovereign bloodline. Moreover, that sovereign bloodline was clearly suppressing her bloodline. That was definitely a bloodline that was even more terrifying than her desolate god monarch bloodline. Otherwise, it would not have been able to suppress her bloodline. Who's a nobody? Whose bloodline is lower? Zhao Fu looked at her and said with a hint of ridicule. The desolate god muttered in dissatisfaction, "What's so great about having a high bloodline?" Boom! Zhao Fu heard these words clearly, and an even greater emperor's aura weighed down on the desolate god. The desolate god was so frightened that she hurriedly cried out, "Master, I was wrong." Zhao Fu lightly harumphed and said, "Continue talking about blood god demons. If you don't do it properly, we will really refine you." The desolate god gritted her teeth and said honestly, "The core material is the desolate god royal bloodline, and the other materials are various types of blood. The desolate god has to personally do this, or else she will suffer a backlash. Also, divine sins are a type of power that degenerates godly spirits, and they are extremely evil. As such, even if you create blood god demons, the desolate god will not be able to completely control them, and they might go berserk if they are not careful. As such, we need specialized divine guards. Blood god demons have a limit, and they rely on the desolate god's power. The stronger the desolate god, the more blood god demons they can create. After hearing her words, Zhao Fu thought about it. The more powerful something was, the more restrictions there would be. Moreover, without a desolate god, ordinary people would not be able to do this. Can you create them now? Zhao Fu asked in concern. The desolate god angrily thought to herself, if this god could create them, would I be afraid of you? This god would beat you up in a matter of minutes. She did not dare to say this out loud, and she pretended to be honest as she said, Master, my power has not recovered yet. I have only just awakened and do not have much power, so I need a large amount of faith energy. Zhao Fu understood and nodded as he said, right now, the Qin Empire has 150 billion people and can provide you with a large amount of faith energy. However, the prerequisite is that you must be loyal to Qin. The desolate god was quite shocked. She had never thought that Zhao Fu would be the ruler of such a massive empire. 150 billion people would provide a massive amount of faith energy, and perhaps she would be able to recover her strength soon and return to the godly realm. Thinking to there, the desolate god happily laughed and said, Thank you, Master. I will definitely be loyal to Qin. However, this was not what she truly thought. What she truly thought was that after she recovered her strength, she would teach Zhao Fu a lesson and make him call me Master 1 million times, no, 100 million times. Is that so? Zhao Fu smiled as he asked. The desolate god gave a naive smile, looking incredibly harmless as she nodded. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, Where are you coming from? The desolate god immediately felt that something was off, but before she could react, chains shot out from the air. The desolate god swung her fists, sending 10 or so chains flying, but in the end, she was still bound up by Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's smile became a cold smile as he stretched out a hand, and a black orb of light giving off terrifying power floated out of his hand. This orb of light contained a great deal of god-slaying power and could deal great damage to godly spirits. The desolate god was given a big fright as she cried out, Master, I was wrong. I'll be loyal to Qin with all my heart. Zhao Fu ignored her words and sent the orb of light into her body. The desolate god's eyes were tightly closed, and she looked quite afraid. She had already prepared herself for immense pain, but nothing happened after the orb of light entered her body. Instead, it turned into restrictions and spread out. The desolate god's performance at the start made it so that Zhao Fu did not trust her at all. As such, he had to leave behind restrictions to prevent her from doing anything dangerous. The desolate god was quite displeased and sensed the restrictions in her body. She knew that her future days would be quite miserable, and she had to listen to that person or else she would be punished. This person is simply a scum. This god will remember this. Zhao Fu returned to the palace and asked about the fish scale world. Qin had taken down the fish scale world, but he had only roughly conquered it and did not have complete control over it. As such, he needed some time to digest this information. After receiving a satisfactory reply, Zhao Fu ordered people to gather information about the dark demon world. After conquering the fish scale world, Qin's next target was the dark demon world. Chapter 12:16. As Zhao Fu was thinking about how to attack the dark demon world, a medallion in Zhao Fu's spatial ring gave off a faint violet light. This was the light from the Cosmos Medallion. Zhao Fu took out the Cosmos Medallion and found that the Cosmos Historical Remnant was about to open. This made Zhao Fu feel quite surprised. The Cosmos Historical Remnant only opened once every 10 years, and it was only the 9th year now. It would only open next year. Zhao Fu had never thought that the Cosmos Historical Remnant would open a year earlier than before. What had happened? Zhao Fu did not know what had happened, but he was quite interested in the Cosmos Historical Remnant. After all, it was said that it was a historical remnant left behind by a higher being. It was the largest historical remnant in the surrounding 10 or so domains. There were countless treasures within, and even after 1,000 years, it had not been completely explored. This was enough to show how valuable the cosmos historical remnant was. It was a historical remnant that countless people from the 10 or so domains wanted to enter, wanting to obtain large amounts of treasures and opportunities. Back then, in order to obtain this cosmos medallion, Zhao Fu had even climbed the 10,000 dragon stage to enter the cosmos historical remnant. Of course, all factions viewed the cosmos historical remnant with great importance and sent their elite disciples in. Apart from the dynasty legatees and sects from the 10 or so domains, some ordinary factions people and some independent people would also go. As long as one fulfilled the requirements of the cosmos historical remnant and had a cosmos medallion, anyone could enter. The number of people would definitely not be small, and it would be extremely large. It was destined to be an exceptionally bitter and bloody battle. Zhao Fu had never thought that the cosmos historical remnant would open so early, so he had not gathered any information. Luckily, the cosmos medallion gave off a light, so there was still some time to prepare. As such, Zhao Fu immediately ordered people to gather information about the cosmos historical remnant. Information was definitely a must. That way, they would be able to avoid unnecessary losses. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as a massive shock wave swept out in all directions. 5-colored light spilled down from the sky as a peerless expert giving off 5-colored light appeared. Countless people from the Tao cultivation sect looked at the person in the sky in shock and could not help but loudly cheer. The Tao cultivation sect's elders came out and looked at that person and smiled. The person in the sky was dressed in white clothes and had an elegant demeanor. He looked somewhat like Bai Haoran, but his aura and power far surpassed Bai Haoran's. He was Bai Haoran's big brother, Bai Shangjun, the person who had been taken as a disciple by a higher being. Now that the cosmos historical remnant had opened, he had rushed back from the heaven domain. They did not know why. Everyone looked at him in awe and excitement. This was the peerless genius of the ancient STEM domain, the most talented person in the past 1,000 years. All other geniuses paled in comparison to him, and he was the pride of the ancient STEM domain. Bai Shangjun descended from the sky, and countless people immediately surrounded him. They were filled with respect, excitement, and ingratiation as they called out, "Senior apprentice brother, brother." Bai Haoran stood at the side and called out happily. It was clear that the relationship between the two brothers was very good. Bai Shangjun courteously returned the greeting and turned to look at Bai Haoran as he smiled and said, "Haoran, I haven't seen you for a while, and your cultivation has increased by quite a bit." Bai Haoran embarrassedly smiled as he said, "How can my cultivation speed compare to yours? You're already a higher being's disciple." Bai Shangjun lightly laughed. "You'll have to work hard. If you perform well, I can recommend you to Master. Master treats people quite well." Hearing this, Bai Haoran could not help but feel quite excited and earnestly nodded. "Junair, why have you come back?" The Tao cultivation sect master walked over and looked at Bai Shangjun as he asked. Bai Shangjun first bowed. To him, the Tao cultivation sect master was like a father to him. "Master, the cosmos historical remnant has opened, and one of the things is very important to me. As such, I asked for some time off from Master and came back to retrieve it." "What?" Senior apprentice brother, Bai, came back for the cosmos historical remnant? With him leading us, we'll be invincible in the ancient STEM domain. If anyone dares to offend the Tao cultivation sect, with senior apprentice brother Bai here, they'll be seeking death. Countless people with cosmos medallions cried out. With someone as powerful as Bai Shangjun to rely on, they would not have to worry at all in the cosmos historical remnant. A while later, Bai Haoran and Bai Shangjun returned to their courtyard. Bai Shangjun sensed something and asked in surprise, "Haoran, why do you have so little fate? Why do you have so little fate? You only have the Tao cultivation sect's fate. Aren't you ranked first on the ancient STEM rankings?" Bai Haoran, who had been in a good mood, gave a bitter smile when he heard this. The number one person on the ancient STEM rankings this year was not him. It was an extremely terrifying person. He was not a match for him at all. nor did he have the qualifications to be a match for him. Hearing this, Bai Shengjun felt quite shocked. If that person had been able to defeat his little brother, he would have been able to accept it. However, he had dealt his little brother such a heavy blow and looked as if he was inferior. He did not believe that anyone could do such a thing. What's going on? Tell me about it. Bai Howren started to tell Bai Shengjun about everything that had happened at the ancient stem banquet. From the top 10 rankings at the start, to the battle with the ancient sword sect master, to the 3 emperor stars descending and that person escaping. Hearing this, Bai Shengjun's expression became serious. He had never thought that such a terrifying person would appear in such a short period of time. Facing such a person, Bai Howren felt a trace of pressure, but he laughed. It had been a long time since anyone had given him such a feeling, and he was confident that he could defeat that person. The ancient sword sect's people's expressions were quite grim. The Cosmos historical remnant had started early, but they had no one to send. The ancient sword sect's first-ranked disciple, Gu Jian, was already half-possessed and could not even think clearly. How could they let him enter the Cosmos historical remnant? The ancient sword sect's second-ranked, third-ranked, and fifth-ranked disciples had all been killed by that despicable person. They could only send the fourth-ranked disciple to bring others into the Cosmos historical remnant. It was evident that they would not be able to obtain much this time, as the ancient sword sect did not have the strength to compete. It could be said that the ancient sword sect had already lost. This caused the ancient sword sect's hatred towards Zhao Fu to deepen. They had thought of hundreds of ways to torture and kill Zhao Fu, or else they would not be able to quench their hatred. The Heavenly Music sect's sect master said gently, "In air, there are many dangers this time. This time, it will be quite dangerous." Not only did Bai Shengjun return to the ancient stem domain, but I heard that the Emperor also obtained a Cosmos medallion and might enter as well. You should avoid getting involved with those two. You should have good gains. Chapter 12:17. Inruoshi nodded seriously and said in a beautiful voice, "Master, I understand. I got it. I'll protect them this time." The Bear Mountain Kingdom's king handed a blood-red beating heart to the third prince, Xiongxiao. That heart was filled with life, and each time it beat, it gave off a powerful might. It was most likely not an ordinary item. The Bear Mountain Kingdom's king said seriously, "This is a Harmony Realm Devil Bear's heart. There might be many dangers in the Cosmos historical remnant this time, so this is for you to protect yourself. This item can only be used a few times, so don't use it casually." Xiongxiao said domineeringly and confidently, "Don't worry, Imperial Father. Your son will definitely be able to obtain massive gains this time and bring glory to you. With the Devil Bear's heart, as long as I don't have to face the top 3, your son will definitely win." The Ice Origin Kingdom's Bing Qixue was also making preparations. He had prepared for a long time for this Cosmos historical remnant, and he was going to bring some people from the Ice Origin Kingdom as well as 2 of his guards. Imperial Prince, I heard that the Cosmos historical remnant opened early, most likely because it sensed the Imperial Prince's arrival. Imperial Prince is truly someone blessed by the heavens and is revered by countless creatures, a bearded elder said to a mighty-looking and domineering-looking young man in a flattering manner. That elder was the ruler of a dukedom kingdom, yet he was trying to curry favor with this young man and even called him Imperial Prince. There was only one reason, which was that this person was a true Imperial Prince called Zhang Yueming. He came from a true empire and was not a fake like Zhao Fu. Even though his status was not as high as the others in his empire, and he was not taken seriously, as a true Imperial Prince, he had terrifying power and could suppress everyone on the domain rankings. At the same time, with his identity, no one dared to offend him, or else, if an empire's expert descended, they would be able to sweep through an entire domain. That was why the elder was trying to curry favor with Zhang Yueming. He had even offered up many women from the imperial family for Zhang Yueming to play with. His goal was to have an imperial prince as a backer, so that no one would dare to offend his faction. Zhang Yueming laughed heartily, as he reached his hands into the clothes of the two beauties. "It is indeed your honor for this imperial prince to come to your domain. With this imperial prince's ability, it is not a problem for me to sweep through your bunch of trash." "Yes, yes," the elder hurriedly agreed, because he knew that Zhang Yueming had that kind of strength. As an imperial prince of the heaven domain, he would definitely be able to suppress the geniuses of the other domains. After all, the two of them were no longer on the same level. "Crown Prince, please have a look." The one martial sex Ming Jian continuously bitterly trained, wanting to defeat that unreachable figure in his heart. That figure was Zhao Fu. After seeing that power, the prideful Ming Jian suffered a big blow, and just like Shuj, he focused on cultivating. Seeing him work so hard, the one martial sect fully supported him, causing his power to rise incredibly quickly. Within a tall and luxurious palace, a figure sat within a black magic formation. That figure's aura was extremely powerful and seemed to have fused with the heavens and heaven and earth power could flow into it at any moment. This figure was a world realm expert and could freely use heaven and earth power. However, this figure was an elderly man. Moreover, this elderly man gave off a deathly aura and looked incredibly old. His face was covered with wrinkles and age spots, and there were only a few strands of hair left. It seemed that he had lived for a very long time, and his lifespan had run out. The elderly man's identity was not simple at all. He was the ancestor of a royal kingdom and had the strength of 10 worlds. He had once been a peerless expert whose name had shaken many domains, and his power was unimaginably great. Now that he was nearing the end of his lifespan, his power had greatly declined, and this Cosmos Historical Remnant was his final chance. His goal was to enter the Cosmos Historical Remnant and obtain something that could increase his lifespan. With his cultivation and lifespan, ordinary things that could increase lifespan were useless to him, so he had to find something that could increase his lifespan. This kind of thing could only be obtained in the Cosmos Historical Remnant. He had entered the Cosmos Historical Remnant in the past and knew some secrets. Back then, he had obtained many opportunities in the Cosmos Historical Remnant, which was why he had his current achievements. Chapter 12:18. However, the Cosmos Historical Remnant had great restrictions. Those who were too old or had too high of a cultivation would not be able to enter. The Elder had thought of a way, which was why he was within the black magic formation. "Begin," the Elder said in an ancient voice to the people around him. The people wearing priest robes obeyed and brought out 10 young men and women. These young men and women gave off noble auras and had the aura of a royal clan. They were all from the royal clan, and their auras were quite similar to the Elder's. This was because these 10 young men and women were related to the Elder by blood, and they were the Elder's descendants. However, right now, they were crying and struggling, begging the Elder to let them go. This was because the Elder needed their lives to use a forbidden technique. This forbidden technique could temporarily restore his youth, seal his cultivation, and hide his age. This could trick the Cosmos Medallion and allow him to directly enter the Cosmos Historical Remnant, achieving his goal. However, there was a price. This forbidden technique required 10 people who were related to him by blood. In other words, he needed his grandchildren, sons, daughters, or even later generations. Moreover, after using it, it would greatly harm his body and cause his cultivation to fall. However, he was already someone who was about to die, so he did not have to worry about this. Facing the young men and women's cries, the Elder's gaze was cold and did not change. He was a cold-blooded person, and in order to live a bit longer, he did not mind sacrificing his family. After all, the kingdom still needed him to lead it. "Arg!" 10 cries sounded out as the people wearing priest robes had the 10 people kneel around the black magic formation. They then took out 10 sharp swords and pierced them through the chests of the young men and women, causing blood to spurt out and the black magic formation to quickly absorb the blood. Boom! The black magic formation exploded out with a terrifying and strange power. Countless traces of black light spread out, causing the sun and moon to dim as an eerie wind blew. Countless ghosts howled as a massive wave of eerie and cold energy entered the elder's body. The elder's body started to become young at a rate visible to the naked eye, and his sparse hair started to grow out. Soon, a young man with snow-white hair and gray eyes who gave off an eerie and cold aura appeared. This was the elder from before who was about to die. The elder sensed his body's vitality and power, and his cold face could not help but smile. As for the 10 young men and women surrounding the spell formation, they were already dead. Their corpses were held in a kneeling position by some strange power, and their faces were filled with pain, anger, and hatred. The elder, or rather, the white-haired young man, did not mind these corpses and walked out of the room, starting to prepare for entering the cosmos' historical remnant. An ordinary-looking young man with a calm aura walked on the street, tossing out a medallion that gave off intense violet light. Everyone could not help but gulp, as the medallion in the young man's hand was the Cosmos Medallion. Now that the Cosmos historical remnant had opened ahead of time, the price of Cosmos medallions had increased by 10 or so times. Moreover, everyone wanted one, causing the price of Cosmos medallions to skyrocket. If someone sold a Cosmos medallion, they would never be able to spend all of their money in their lifetime. Most people who obtained a Cosmos medallion were very careful and did not dare to reveal that they had a Cosmos medallion for fear that others would try to steal it. However, this young man had actually taken out a Cosmos medallion. Many people's gazes became filled with greed, and they could not help but want to go up and snatch it. A few Saint Realm experts could not help but step out, surround the simple-minded young man, and say, "Hand over your Cosmos medallion, or Grandpa will have you die here." The ordinary-looking young man lightly laughed. "So it's called a Cosmos medallion. Tell me what it does, and I'll spare your life." These words caused the Saint Realm experts to feel furious, and they all attacked towards the ordinary-looking young man. However, their bodies suddenly froze on the spot. Then a gentle breeze blew, and their bodies turned into dust. A few Saint Realm experts had silently died just like that, and no one knew what had happened. This caused countless people to retreat, not daring to stand around the ordinary-looking young man, nor did they dare to have any thoughts about the Cosmos medallion in his hand. It was evident that this young man was incredibly powerful. They did not know that this young man's aura was unimaginably powerful, and it was even slightly more powerful than that emperor's aura. If people from the Heaven Domain saw this young man, they would feel quite shocked. After all, this young man was quite famous in the Heaven Domain, and no one would have thought that he would come to an outer domain. What's the use of this Cosmos medallion? The ordinary-looking young man smiled as he looked at a middle-aged man with decent strength and asked. The middle-aged man was so scared that his legs became weak, and he hurriedly said, "Cosmos medallions are used to enter the Cosmos historical remnant. Look at the violet light coming from the Cosmos medallion. It's because the Cosmos historical remnant has opened early." The ordinary-looking young man understood and softly said, "Thank you," before turning into a light breeze and disappearing as if he had never been there. Within the 8 Dragons Essence sect, Long Yong raised his head and wildly laughed.